Well, it's been almost a week now, and day after day, I continue to get DMs from people requesting that I react to this video from Jeremy from Financial Education, who has officially sold out of Tesla my esla. So we're going to watch this video. It's going to be a very long one. Jeremy explaining over about 40 minutes 5 reasons why he has sold out of his Tesla position. First of all, here was Jeremy's post announcing the decision prior to the video dropping. A screenshot with the Tesla position at the time, I believe 777 shares owned. Obviously those were all sold at an average cost of $13.19. A total gain/loss on those shares of not far off $200,000. Not bad. And before I get into this reaction video, I do want to say a few things about Jeremy. He's one of the OGs of finance content creation. Paved the way for a lot of people creating videos on YouTube. Guy was an absolute content machine in the early days, I believe. Maybe 3 years without missing a daily video. And it's clearly built up a very successful business. That said, we obviously have extremely different investment philosophies, and I don't just say this as an educated guess, but many years ago, I think 2020 or maybe even 2019, Jeremy reacted to one of my early Tesla videos where I explained why I was all in on Tesla stock. Jeremy's also a very nice guy. So with that out of the way, I look very much forward to sharing my thoughts on Jeremy's thoughts on why he has sold out of his Tesla stock in April 2025, with Tesla's first Robotaxis to begin operating in Austin in June of the same year.
Holy smokers, this ain't no jokers. The rumors are true. I have sold and liquidated 100% of my Tesla shares here today. We have filed for divorce and we have now achieved a divorce. I have sold it all. Now, when I found Tesla, she was a junkie. No one wanted her. And I saw the beauty in her and I said, this could really be something. And it was magical. It was magical for a long time. I made more money than I ever dreamt on Tesla stock between all the shares I had in the public account and my private portfolios. It's unbelievable amount of profits I got to take out of Tesla over the last number of years, right? But let me be very clear about Tesla. She's relapsed into being a junkie once again. And I tried to save the marriage and I hoped things would clean up. And, over the last few years, things have just deteriorated worse and worse and worse. And so now I'm at the stage where I have to let her go. And it's somebody else's turn now at this point in time. And if somebody else can save her, you know, good for them. I'm happy for them, right? And I have more attractive girls lined up across the block that I have options for right now when I'm with this junkie and I'm like, what am I doing here? And so I'm hoping for the best for everybody in regards to Tesla moving forward. I know a lot of people were very upset with me selling the remainder of my shares. They're, you know, saying things like, you know, I hope you regret this decision, you know, horrible decision, all these sorts of things, and kind of, I hope everybody makes money in Tesla over the next few years, but I am not optimistic whatsoever. In this video here today.
So before we get to Jeremy's reasoning behind the lack of optimism, on this we are clearly in polar opposition. I'm extremely optimistic on Tesla over the next few decades. All of the groundwork, the investment in building up an unassailable lead when it comes to generalized autonomy, all the expertise in mass manufacturing electric vehicles profitably at scale, more and more profitably than any other company on the planet, somehow managing to produce the world's best-selling vehicle for multiple years in a row despite a massively higher average selling price than the typical best-selling vehicle on Earth. Just imagine what happens when more affordable vehicles are around the corner. This, by the way, despite the fact that we have sky-high interest rates after the insane scandemic and the crazy stimulus and the runaway inflation. So while Jeremy says he's not at all optimistic, I'm absolutely more optimistic on the future of this company over the long term than I've ever been. Additionally, they've got nearly $40 billion of cash and investments right now. Not only have they won the decade, and next with electric vehicles, so too with autonomy, and they look like they're going to run away with humanoid robots as well. No other company has built the brain, which they've essentially done in the vehicle via FSD, to transplant into a humanoid robot to give them a massive head start. Nor does any other company have experience profitably producing complicated objects at scale that require batteries, electric motors, and so on. And in case you guys don't know, most of the people with the largest brains on the planet still want to and or do work for Elon Musk. I have never been more optimistic. Personally, while Jeremy's selling, I'm still buying. Let's see his reasoning.
I think it's very important everybody listens to this one and really digest this one here today, because this is a stock I've held for many, many years. I saw the stock when everybody had cast this one away, And so I know this company very, very well. And so I'm going to go over 5 reasons I sold today. And it's very important everybody listens very closely to all 5 of those reasons, because if you miss even one, you're going to miss the whole show, okay? And by the way, there was a lot more than 5 reasons I could have gone into in this video here today. I just want to cover the main 5, okay? Second thing we'll get into is, what would it take for me to buy Tesla back in future years? Let's say next year or the year after, something like that. What would I need to see in regards to Tesla, okay? Obviously, hard decision for me to sell out of this one. Only thing I ask from you guys is to smash that like button on this video. If you could do that for me, that would mean the world. That would be all the support in the world. That's all I need from you guys. If you want to be subscribed here to the channel, you can certainly subscribe. And I'm always here to cover all this stuff. You know, who else is willing to do this? Who else is willing to make these controversy moves like buying Tesla back in the day when that was the most hated stock? I remember selling out of my Apple shares, buying Tesla with the money, and being laughed out of the building. You're selling Apple to buy Tesla? What a joke, right? And obviously, you know, the rest is history, and the amount of money I made from the stock was insane. And now I'm obviously getting a lot of hate because I'm selling, you know, sold out of all my shares. And so, you know, we'll see how things turn out, but I think there's better options out there, and we're going to go through that in this video here today. So I hope you guys appreciate me being vulnerable and sharing all this stuff with you, okay? Alrighty, let's get rolling. Let's get into these 5 reasons. Number 1, first reason I sold out of Tesla is it's a core business that is in decline. This is not a debate. This is not an opinion. This is factual. Tesla's core business is in decline now at this point in time. Obviously, electric vehicles have been taking off across the world, including obviously the United States, right? United States has kind of been a little bit of a lagger, but even in the United States, if we look at the latest market share data, you know, up to 8% roughly of vehicles sold. Look at this. In 2024, the US EV market has reached an 8.1% market share. So clearly EVs, you know, that were the future are here now, right? They're becoming a bigger and bigger thing. Now, with all that, you would expect Tesla to be tearing it up, right? Well, if we look back a few years ago, Tesla had around a 75% market share in the United States.
Now, I'm not sure where Jeremy's going with this, but just in case, obviously, if he's about to say that Tesla's market share in percentage terms in the US or anywhere has declined in percentage terms year over year, this is a really dumb argument, because obviously Tesla was one of the only companies producing electric vehicles a few years ago, selling them in any meaningful volume. And as soon as other companies came along and even sold a handful of vehicles, suddenly they're getting a little bit of a percent of a share of the market. The more companies selling a few vehicles, the lower Tesla's overall percentage share of the market. I mean, this is obvious, right? I've given the example before, but to boil it down really simply, if Tesla was the only company on the planet selling electric vehicles, by default, they have 100% market share. As soon as a single company sells a single electric vehicle, suddenly Tesla has, quote, lost market share in percentage terms. But of course, Jeremy's not actually going to reason like this. If he were to reason like that, I'd be like, bro, that doesn't make any fucking sense. As I've been saying for many years, by default, the more companies that produce electric vehicles, the less Tesla's, quote, market share is going to be, but that doesn't matter. What really matters, if you're talking just about the automotive business, is how many vehicles are they selling on planet Earth over time. That's the metric to focus on. Not one specific market or percentage market share, but how many actual Tesla vehicles are being sold on Earth.
When it came to electric vehicles. Now, what do you think that number is now? Well, we can fast forward a little bit, and then the latest data we have, Tesla's all the way down to 43% of the market share. There's a clear trend that Tesla's market share is eroding, and eroding pretty darn rapidly. Like if we just go back to this same period last year, we are at 52% market share. Now down to 43%. If we go back to the previous year's quarter, we are 62% market share, right? So it is not just that Tesla's losing market share. It's that it's losing market share at an accelerating clip, in that we don't even know where Tesla's market share is going to end up. Where are they going to end up of EVs? 5%, 10%, 20%? Like, we don't know. We just know it's going lower and lower and lower. And
surely this isn't real. Like, this is some CNBS level analysis right here. By the way, just for the record, my personal modeling, my Tesla valuation from day one, even in the best case, I've had Tesla roughly a 20% global market share a decade from now in terms of electric vehicles. And again, the reason is quite simple. Electric vehicles are a growing market, and the more companies that produce and start scaling, the more companies take a little bit of a slice of Tesla's absolutely astronomical initial market share. This, at least in my valuation model, was to be expected. I think somewhere around that 20% share, probably downside's about 15 and upside maybe 25%. I mean, there could be some other absurd scenarios out there. But this, I mean, regardless of Tesla's overall market share, these numbers tell us literally nothing of any substance regarding Tesla's business. If Tesla's vehicle sales, actual numbers of vehicles sold, were declining by a comparable amount, consistently, and there were no external factors that might be impacting them, then you might have an argument, a point, a reason to be bearish. But we're not off to a great start with the reasoning here. Again, I go back to the example. If Tesla's the only company making EVs, they've got 100% market share. One company sells one other EV, the number goes down, therefore Tesla's market share is declining. That doesn't matter. How many actual vehicles are they selling on the planet year over year? Of course, no doubt that will be coming soon.
You know, it's pretty dramatic. I mean, to lose another almost, 9 percentage points of market share just in the past year? No bueno, right? Now, if we look at electric vehicle sales volume change by automaker 2024 versus 2023, what you're going to find is Tesla was not just the worst, but by far and away the worst when it came to electric vehicle sales. That's huge problems. And by the way, this is 2024 numbers. This is before all the protests. So if you think has anything to do with the latest stuff, that drama about people protesting Tesla and out in front of the Tesla dealerships and blah, 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 this has nothing to do with this. We're looking at 2024 numbers right now, what I'm showing you. And so this is way before all of that.
So again, I just got to take a sec here and have to point out some obvious things that are obvious. Of every car company on this list, plus Tesla, who I would not refer to as a car company, Tesla's annualized rate of production is roughly 1.8 million electric vehicles. The figure here of almost 40,000 vehicles down year over year, it's just a few percent decline versus the previous year. Whereas companies like Honda, GM, Ford, Toyota, Nissan, Subaru, Rivian, these companies, their electric vehicle business is currently at a much lower, smaller scale than Tesla's. So if you wanted to be a little bit more intellectually honest presenting this data, you'd probably want to show, in addition to the actual number, which is relevant, a percent change, e.g. increase or decline in EV sales between 23 and 24 as well, just for context. Because obviously, let's say hypothetically, that Tesla was selling 10 times as many electric vehicles as, say, Ford. You would expect then the task of Ford selling a few more electric vehicles would be significantly easier, given the fact they were ramping from a fairly low base. You understand what I mean, right? If Tesla can be selling close to 2 million electric vehicles in a year, there's obviously, that's a watermark for other companies to possibly scale to, right? Because Tesla's doing it. So unless each of these companies was producing and selling roughly the same number of electric vehicles per year, you'd also probably want the percentage change as well, just for some additional context, right? Seems reasonable. And don't get me wrong, you don't want to see a decline in number of vehicles sold globally year over year consistently over time, although there could be reasons, e.g. sky-high interest rates, but you don't want to see stuff like this, especially if you think Tesla's just a car company. But it is really important to have that additional context. I guess another way to think about this, hypothetically, let's just say magically I tomorrow had $10 million invested in a stock. I don't, I'm just saying if I did, right? And then I have a friend who's got $1 billion invested in the stock market. And I have another friend who's got $10,000 invested in the stock market. So 10,000, 10 million and $1 billion. If the friend of mine who has $1 billion invested in the market saw his portfolio decline by 1/4 of 1%, he could post some loss porn showing that he'd lost $2.5 million yesterday. If my $10 million portfolio had lost the same amount, again, my hypothetical portfolio, I wish I had 10 mil, I'd be down a whopping $25,000. Alternatively, in order for my $10 million portfolio to be down the same amount as my $1 billion friend, I wouldn't need a 0.25% loss or a 2.5% loss, but a 25% loss, 100 times greater loss for the same dollar amount. And for the friend with $10,000 invested, it wouldn't be possible to lose $25,000 unless short selling, I guess. So the point here again is that scale actually matters. Relative scale, right? We need this data presented with a little bit more context just to understand what's actually happening.
And so there's a clear trend that Tesla has major issues inside the United States of America, right? Now, the Chinese have been taking EVs more serious than anybody, than any country by a mile, right?
Absolutely true. I've said it before, I'll say it again, the future of the EV market by units sold, revenue, same shit. Number 1, Tesla. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Chinese EV makers. Maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. As I've been saying for many years now, companies like Volkswagen, Toyota, Ford, General Motors are in big fucking trouble. And it's not because of Tesla. I mean, there's no point even trying to compete with Tesla if you're Ford or General Motors. It ain't going to happen. Their best hope is to compete on the arse end of the market. Really low entry points, dog shit infotainment, shitty software, but hey, maybe you can sell it for a bit cheaper than Tesla. The problem is, that's exactly what these Chinese electric vehicle companies are doing. They're producing very compelling, relative to the price point, electric vehicles that are going after the mass market. Now, admittedly, there's very few companies in China selling electric vehicles that actually make any money selling them yet, but those that do have pretty thin margins. a lot of complexity in their business. However, some of these companies will actually survive the decade, and those that do, as they reach scale, will be able to produce fairly compelling products at very low costs. Now, they do have a few challenges. Some of them probably aren't going to meet international safety standards, but a few will. And they'll make it to Europe. They'll make it to the United States. They'll make it to Australia, other parts of the world. And many consumers will be buying those vehicles. That said, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I've got a hunch. It is important to understand that already today in China, the best-selling vehicle is not made by a Chinese EV maker. It's made by a foreign automotive manufacturer, quote-unquote auto manufacturer, called Tesla, who are selling said vehicle, the Model Y, for a price point 2 to 3 times higher than numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the top 10 selling list of vehicles in China. That is astonishing. Not only are they a foreign company, but they're somehow punching so far above their weight. They have the best-selling vehicle in China, charging 2 to 3 times as much as most other vehicles in the top 10. That is an astonishing feat. It tells you the quality of the product that Tesla has produced, the brand that Tesla has. The consumers are willing to pay 2 to 3 times more to buy a Tesla vehicle in China versus much of the local competition. This is really fucking important. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing Jeremy's thoughts.
And it's gotten to the point where in 2024, nearly 1 out of every 2 cars sold in China was an electric vehicle. EVs are a huge thing in China, and probably in the next few years, like EVs will be like nearly 100% of sales. Like they'll likely end up completely outlawing anything other than an EV essentially, right? Now, what has happened to Tesla in China? Well, now BYD has surpassed Tesla in terms of both sales and revenue now at this point in time. And honestly, that gap is going to eventually widen quite dramatically, it looks like here, right?
Man, I have a lot to say. So first of all, BYD are doing very well. Second of all, we are just drilled down on China at the moment. But I do want to add a few important pieces of information that Jeremy hasn't mentioned yet, at least. Right? BYD also has an incredible battery business. Right? They sell batteries, including to companies like Tesla, which is kind of carrying the company in terms of their profitability. Importantly, in terms of revenue in China, one of the big drivers of BYD's revenue growth isn't from pure electric vehicle sales, but in fact hybrids, aka trans EVs, which we all know what's under your hood, bro. You ain't fooling anybody. You're an ICE vehicle pretending to be an electric vehicle. And obviously, revenue growth is good. But if your revenue growth is contingent on selling products that no consumer will be buying a few years from now, you got a problem. In fact, Jeremy himself even mentioned the huge growth with EVs in China. A few years from now, they're probably going to be most of the market. He's right. He even mentioned potentially outlawing other forms of propulsion. Well, that is true, and that is also going to include internal combustion engine vehicles pretending to be electric vehicles, aka hybrids. It's important. BYD previously were an ICE vehicle manufacturer. The CCP gets what they want, right? No more ICE vehicles for you? Okay, fine. Well, then we'll make ICE vehicles, but we'll stick a little vibrator-sized battery in them so we can keep selling them. And this is a short-term solution to big revenue growth. But long-term, consumers aren't going to be buying hybrid vehicles. There was a window of time when they made sense, when EVs couldn't provide sufficient range at a reasonable price point, but now they can. And the additional complexity from an engineering point of view and a manufacturing point of view, from making a literal internal combustion engine vehicle and then also having to do all the EV shit inside as well, it makes no sense. Short term it does because you milk a bit of profit and grow some revenue, but long term they're going away. There's a narrative out here that seems to imply that BYD has massively overtaken Tesla in terms of like electric vehicle sales, and a lot of this data is being conflated. Yes, their revenue is growing strongly, and yes, they are making some money, but they don't separate, as far as I'm aware, their EV business from their hybrid business from their battery business, and their battery business is incredible, but their hybrid business, which is causing a huge surge in revenue, is going away faster than people realize. And the final point, again, to emphasize, which I'm not sure if Jeremy's mentioned or not, maybe he will later, is that in China, despite the narrative about BYD growing and BYD didn't have the best-selling vehicle of any kind in China last year. That would be Tesla, despite selling for 2 to 3 times more than the average BYD vehicle is available for in China. If you dig just a little bit beneath the surface from some of these headlines, you realize that that's actually a pretty compelling bull case for Tesla. Outselling BYD, the most successful Chinese EV manufacturer in China, at a price point 2 to 3 times higher. That's fucking incredible.
Right. Now, in China, the issue is like Tesla's having trouble moving product now there, but even when you do move product, there's little money to be made because the market is so competitive. Like in China, there's at least 5 to 10 serious EV competitors in China. And so when you have that many serious competitors that have very compelling products in the market, and I have friends that go to China and they'll send me photos when they're over there and whatnot, and folks in my private stock group that will send me photos, the product looks good. Like the cars on the exterior look pretty darn attractive. The software looks phenomenal that these cars have. The range looks good. And it's like there's a bunch of competitors in China. And so it's just going to get more competitive over the next few years. And so even when you do sell an EV in China, there's very, very little money to even be made.
So a couple of things. I mean, in general, fair point. It's a cutthroat, extremely competitive market in China. And most of the companies today selling electric vehicles there at very low prices aren't actually making any money. They're losing money. And those that are making money, paper-thin margins. Yet still, despite that, Tesla's making a profit selling vehicles in China, and they had the best-selling vehicle in China, somehow miraculously selling them at 2 to 3 times the price of most of the so-called competition. Again, it's worth pondering, wait, what does that actually mean? The implications. A worthwhile, albeit anecdotal data point, will be to actually watch some of the people in China who've recently gained access to FSD, who are sharing their thoughts and their comparisons with FSD, a core piece of the software, right, versus the local competition. The vast majority, the consensus opinion, is that FSD in China is on par with, if not superior, to any of the local software that's providing driver assist features. And this is very important because this happened without any local training with local data. Tesla had a generalized solution for autonomy, pulled a bit of data from the internet for local signage, blah, blah, blah. Bam, suddenly they're operating FSD seamlessly in China. Now, this is not to disparage what the Chinese EV manufacturers are doing. They're making great progress and making compelling products even if they can't make any money selling them. Yet Tesla's still outselling them in their home country at a huge price point disadvantage and making a profit on every vehicle sold. The Chinese EV market, the real thesis here is that these are the companies that will be eating the lunch of today's mass manufacturers of ICE vehicles, Volkswagen, Toyota, etc.
Over there now at this point in time, right? Now, if we look at the number of Tesla vehicles sold worldwide, right, what we're going to find is the early signs that Tesla was already starting to have some troubles was back in 2023. Because basically, Elon was thinking like production was going to go up easily like 50% a year, right? And we already started to have some troubles in 2023. But then last year, 2024, was kind of like, it's obvious now. Because volumes didn't go up that 50%. They actually went down. Vehicles delivered worldwide went down for Tesla in 2024. And that's even with all the price cuts at Tesla. Think about all the price cutting Tesla did in 2023 and going into 2024, right? Price cut after price cut, it's all we heard. And even with all those price cuts, they still had volumes be down. That's no bueno whatsoever, right?
So it is true, Tesla volumes were down marginally between 23 and 24. And if this continued to happen year after year, it would be a problem. But before we panic, we have to think, hang on, could there be any potential reasons behind this? Such as, for example, a scamdemic, followed by futile fascist inhumane shutdowns, followed by insane financial stimulus and overspending, causing runaway inflation, causing prolonged sky-high interest rates, which directly affect consumers' ability to finance and or willingness psychologically to invest in / spend the money to purchase the second biggest item they'll ever buy, a vehicle. Never mind the supply chain shocks. Now, that's obviously hypothetical and didn't happen, but if it did happen, you might go, oh, okay, maybe there's a little bit of a reason behind a slight decline. Are there any other factors? Let's think about this. Well, despite the fact that the Model Y and the Model 3 are incredible vehicles, they're still well out of the reach of the average consumer. Meaning Tesla's total addressable market is still just a fraction, not even 10%, probably like 5 or so % of the global market. And then, of course, there's the sentiment issues around inflation, no wages growth, blah, 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 the state of the economy. A lot of people go, well, I wanted to buy a new vehicle, but I'll put it off. And again, I'm not making excuses here, but I am pointing out that there are actually some factors, at least partly contributing to Tesla vehicle deliveries not going vertical year after year after year after year forever. Then the question we have to ask is, what could Tesla potentially do to increase their vehicle deliveries over time? And the obvious answer to that, if we're talking about things that are in their control, because they can't control rates, they can't control the macroeconomic environment, they can't control consumer sentiment. What they can do is meaningfully drive the price of their vehicles down. $1,000 here or there isn't going to make the world of difference. But if you could knock 15, 20, 25% off the purchase price, the entry-level purchase price for your vehicles, your products, you're going to unlock 3, 4, 5 times as much addressable market. And funnily enough, I know this is wild to imagine, but it turns out that Tesla is in fact actually introducing new, more affordable vehicles, the first of which is entering production this half of this year. It's almost like they thought of this already. In fact, I might even go as far as to say they told us maybe a year or so ago that they're between growth waves because there's only so many vehicles they can sell at today's price points, especially in today's economic environment. And in order for them to add some rocket fuel to vehicle growth, they actually need to meaningfully reduce the price of a compelling Tesla vehicle that consumers can buy, which is what they're doing. for quarter after quarter, they've told us, first half of this year, the first of multiple more affordable Tesla vehicles, plural, enters production. So to Jeremy's point regarding this, there are actually some factors contributing to a current year-over-year decline, which is, a couple of percent. It's not a big deal. But of course, if you saw that over time indefinitely, it would be a problem. But then you have to ask yourself, what are the potential factors causing this? Are they temporary? Are they transient? E.g. sky-high interest rates? Yeah, they'll come down. And then what would Tesla do to sustain an increase in vehicle deliveries? And the answer to that, of course, would be more affordable vehicles, which they're working on. They've told us they're working on. They've described the manufacturing processes. So this is a non-issue. It's almost like, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And if you're concerned about Tesla, then everything looks like a disaster. But you've got to think. By the way, I don't want to get too carried away, but all this talk about the automotive business, autonomy is just around the corner, man. People are going to completely forget about the vehicle deliveries. Oh, by the way, I've said this before, but I will say it again. Early days, 2019, 2020, 2021, my estimates for Tesla vehicle deliveries were absolutely astonishingly overly optimistic. I mean, ridiculously optimistic. Of course, I wasn't expecting the scamdemic, the shutdowns, the financial stimulus, sky-high interest rates. But even if that stuff didn't happen, they still would have been way too optimistic. But even from that point, from day one, I was saying, look, EVs, that's last decade's news. Teslas, who cares? I'm focused on autonomy. I really have to underscore, 5-10 years from now, no one is going to even remember people being concerned about Tesla's vehicle deliveries being up or down a little bit over this quarter or that. They don't care. They're going to be thinking, holy fuck, this Robotaxi stuff is insane. Never mind the Optimus humanoid robot.
It's sad because it didn't really have to be this way in regards to Tesla's sales volumes going down, right? Because Tesla's product is great. Phenomenal product. I drive all types of different cars throughout my life, have experienced them. I'll even rent cars, everything from a BMW to Mercedes to just, SUVs and American products. At the end of the day, Tesla has a phenomenal product. I would, if somebody said, even my first Tesla ever was a Model 3, from there I got a Model X, and from there I got a Model S Plaid, right? And I have nothing but good things to say about Tesla. Nothing as far as the product goes. And so it sucks that we're in this situation where, sales are literally trending negative when the product is actually a very, very good product they have in the market. But it doesn't matter. And I bring it back to an example of when I was I think I was probably in the 8th grade, maybe the 9th grade. And for Christmas one year, my big present I got was an MP3 player, but it wasn't an iPod. It was a Sony product. And this Sony product was phenomenal. It was by far and away, in my opinion, way better than an iPod. It actually had a touch screen and everything. That wasn't even stuff Apple had back then. It was all analog, right? But at the end of the day, did that Sony product ever take off? No. Even though it was a better product, no, it never took off. Apple understood the marketing game better, understood how to sell better, and obviously the rest is history, right? So it's just because you got a good product in the market doesn't mean anything. And here we are in a moment where Tesla's giving away vehicles. I mean, just giving them away, and they still can't move them. You look at a Model 3. Once again, a phenomenal product. You can say nothing bad about a Model 3. $299 a month to lease that baby with $1,000 down, and you still can't move these? Come on, man. The Model Y lease from $499? The Model Y is an amazing product, arguably the best vehicle in the world for the price point. And you can't move this thing? Come on, man.
If Tesla's offering some truly phenomenal options for leases, etc. at the moment in the US, Model Y, Model 3, phenomenal deals. And I thought more people would be taking them up. However, that being said, Tesla is still moving around 1.8 million of these things a year. And again, I do have to underscore the current economic situation, which doesn't affect folks like Jeremy nor myself nearly as much. I mean, I don't know how much the guy's making, but I suspect that he's doing pretty well for himself financially. I think he's doing pretty good providing for his family. So shout out to Jeremy for being a great provider. But to the average consumer in the United States, coming up with $500 a month to lease a Tesla, probably not within the means of most typical American consumers. I mean, that's a lot of money for an average household to come up with. $6,000 a year. I mean, it's a great fucking deal, but most households can't afford that.
It just should not be this way. It should not be this way at all, right? And you look at, even if you were thinking about buying a vehicle straight up, right? You get the $7,500 federal tax credit that you had for a while, and they still can't move these things. All these price cuts, all these incentives, insanely cheap prices, especially in $20-25. Come on. And we still can't move this product? What is going on here?
Now, again, I understand what Jeremy's saying, but again, they're selling nearly 2 million Teslas a year at the moment. And regarding the price point, well, especially when you factor in the $7,500 tax credit, it's a phenomenal deal. Just because something is a good deal doesn't mean it's within everyone's reach. I refer you guys to this data. Just to be clear, this is not research, this is data. Okay, this is actual data. The purple here, the x-axis, this is based on 2021 data, actual data from the real world. And what we're looking at here in purple is the percent of revenue share of vehicles sold globally based on price point. So let me orient you guys around this. We're looking at 160,000 US dollars here. That's 80,000 US dollars. That's 40,000 US dollars, right? So we're in hundreds of thousands of US dollars along the bottom. And along the side here, we've got the percent of overall vehicle revenue. You could call it vehicle sales, but revenue is the more accurate term. So let me explain what we're looking at here. Vehicles priced at 40,000 US dollars or more, which we just saw Jeremy was pointing out, the Model Y with a great deal, little over 40,000 US dollars, okay? Based on, again, real world data capture today, or based on 2021, less than 5% of all revenue for all vehicles sold on the planet. I'm going to say that again. Over $40,000, you got 5% of the market, meaning under $40,000, you got 95% of the market. Do we understand the point I'm making here? I really want to underscore this. Doesn't matter what incredible deals you're offering for leasing, incredible features. Doesn't matter if the car can give you a fucking blowjob. If you're selling over this 40,000 US dollar mark, the data shows that at most you're going to capture not even 5% of global revenue if you had 100% of the sales over 40,000 US dollars. Yet, and again, this is data. It's not an estimate. This is actual data. The purple is real world data. Reality. This is called reality, folks. The reality is that even at about $37,000, you're still around 5% or less. But something miraculous happens between, call it about 37,000 US dollars and roughly 30,000, where suddenly you go from about 5% to around 40, approaching 50%, meaning a roughly 10 times increase in the number of consumers who can afford to purchase your vehicle. Again, keywords there, afford to. Doesn't matter how good a deal it is. If they can't afford it, they can't afford it. A 10 times increase, an order of magnitude increase in the number of consumers who can afford to buy your vehicle if you can knock the starting price from high $30,000 range to around 30. In other words, in order for Tesla to sell more vehicles in today's economic environment than they're currently selling, what they need to do is to not only get under 40,000 US dollars, but to approach 30,000 US dollars. But along the way, a few $1,000s from 40 to about 37 doesn't make a big difference. But suddenly when you get it to the mid $30,000 range, you see an enormous increase. Okay, we're going from 5% to 10 to 15 to 20. By the time we're around $33,000, maybe 32,000 US dollars, suddenly you've tripled, quadrupled the number of people who can afford to buy your vehicles. Now, I'm not very good at math, but let's do some math, all right? Let's say today Tesla's doing 1.8 million vehicles globally. What if we triple that? 5.4 million. What if we quadruple it? 7.2 million. So in theory, if Tesla's already at an average selling price of well over 40,000 US dollars, meaning we're not even looking at 5% of all vehicle revenue, right? They're already at 1.8 million vehicles, crushing it in this tiny little fraction of the global market. If they can drive the price of their more affordable vehicles, which are entering production first half of this year, if they can drive that price down by 15 to 20% suddenly, si bueno, that's important. Now, if Tesla wasn't intending on releasing more affordable vehicles, didn't have a plan and hadn't been telling investors that's exactly what the fuck they're going to do, you could have some concerns. Oh, how are they going to drive more vehicle sales? But they are introducing more affordable vehicle models. They've described this to investors quarter after quarter after quarter. They're still on track. First vehicle production, first half this year. And they've explained to investors too that they're going to do this in a very capex efficient way. And they've already made many of these adjustments to start cranking these things out. My best guess, again, they're going to use a lot of the same materials, parts, processes as today's 3 and Y, pull out some of the higher end features like the rear screen, the interior lighting, the ventilated seats, the extra cool acoustic glass, and have something comparable but not quite as high end as a Model 3 or Model Y after the recent refreshes for about 15, 20, maybe even 25% lower purchase price. And holy fucking shit, no more concerns about vehicle sales, core business in decline. So I appreciate Jeremy sharing his thoughts so far, but thus far I haven't heard a single actual reasonable comment that makes any sense about Tesla and the reasons to sell. Of course, that's because I'm a deluded Tesla fanboy, not because I've thought about these things and am articulating my reasoning, my counterpoints. I'm just deluded. I'm an Elon D rider, remember. But so far, geez, I haven't heard a convincing reason yet. What do you guys think? Any valid points from Jeremy?
And they still can't move these things. All these price cuts, all these incentives, insanely cheap prices, especially in $20, like, come on. And we still can't move this product? What is going on here, right? The moral of the story is, in regards to this first point, is Apple has a rotten core, indicates fungal infection in decay, making Apple unsafe to eat. This is Tesla, and this is investing in Tesla. When the core of the product, the core of the business is broken, you got big problems, and it's not up for debate. This isn't an opinion. This is a fact. The core of Tesla's business is rotten right now. And that's...
So I'm just trying to process this. Best-selling vehicle, not electric vehicle, but vehicle on the entire planet in 2023 was Tesla's Model Y. By the way, at an average selling price, meaning that they somehow were pulling that off despite addressing less than 5% of the global automotive market by revenue. Astonishing. And then the best-selling vehicle in 2024 globally, not electric vehicle, but vehicle, was also Tesla's Model Y. Once again, selling at that price point, which we covered in great detail moments ago. That means they only could possibly have attained a very tiny slice of all vehicle sales, yet still number one 2 years in a row at a very high average selling price. And Jeremy himself pointing out that he sees big growth in electric vehicles. US was like, 8% or something share? I mean, another 10x to go, right? China sort of leading the way there. In other words, electric vehicles are here to stay. I'm just trying to understand how you would describe their core business as rotten when the core business is spitting out the world's best-selling vehicle 2 years in a row despite having a massive disadvantage in terms of average selling price because it's still a fairly new technology and a lot of costs haven't been able to be driven out. That's what the next-gen Tesla vehicles are for. I'll also add additional context. Tesla's one of the only companies actually making any profit selling electric vehicles on the entire planet. So let me see here. Best-selling vehicle 2 years in a row despite the huge cost disadvantage. Even the best-selling vehicle in China despite the massive amount of local competition at a third to half the cost. Of all the companies making any money selling electric vehicles on Earth, Tesla's making the most, and the vast majority of companies are actually losing money trying to compete with Tesla on cost, showing Tesla has a massive cost advantage and a superior product. I mean, I'm having a hard time digesting this. I mean, this thesis seems rotten. Like, just not right at its core. Now, again, if you look surface level, you don't actually think too deeply. You go, year-over-year vehicle decline. Oh no, rotten business. But surely you got to pull back a little bit. Go, hang on a minute. Who made the best-selling vehicle on the planet multiple years in a row despite the cost disadvantage? Tesla. Okay. Who's making all the money selling electric vehicles? Tesla. Who has the most scale? Tesla. You could argue maybe BYD, but they're neck and neck. And, of course, as we know, this is despite sky-high interest rates, massive impediment, especially for vehicles at that $40,000+ US price point, aka everything Tesla sells for now. And then you've got Tesla's more affordable range of vehicles coming, first of them this half of this year, which will immediately address the concerns about how will they sell more vehicles. I'm having a real hard time digesting this one. Still haven't heard any reasons that I would say, that's actually a really good point. But of course, I'm a deluded Tesla fanboy, so nothing I hear from Jeremy would possibly change my opinion.
No bueno. And it's not like it just happened in the last quarter. No, it's been rotten for a while now at this point in time. Which gets us into point number 2. Growing categories are about to plummet. Because even if you look past the rotten core of the business, you could say there's 2 segments of Apple's business, of their 3 segments, that have been growing very rapidly. And those businesses are energy generation and storage revenue, which is this line item right here, and services and other revenue. Now, if we go back to a quarter ago, energy generation and storage revenue was up 113% year over year. Services and other revenue was up 31% year over year. Extremely strong growth. So you would look at the core of the business, which is automotive revenues, and say, well, yeah, that sucks. But at least our energy generation and storage revenues, flying to the sky, and at least services and other revenues flying to the sky, right?
Just quickly want to add something. I mean, over the long term, Tesla doesn't really intend on making any money on services and other revenue when they have to offer this stuff, but this is not really intended as a massive profit driver for the business. As for energy, it is actually true right now. The energy business is sort of filling the gap a little bit, compensating for some of the slowdown in the automotive business. But it is also important, and I'm sure Jeremy's going to point this out, to note how extremely lumpy the energy business is, because typically these are the fuck off gigantic batteries Tesla sells, right? Sometimes one customer can be buying $100 million of Tesla Megapacks, $200 million worth, $400 million worth. So depending which quarter those things are produced and importantly delivered to the customer and therefore the revenue counted, you can see wild fluctuations in Tesla's energy revenue from quarter to quarter and even year over year. And this is one of the most important aspects of Tesla's business to look at on a trailing 12-month basis. That smooths out a lot of the lumpiness because you will see swings between quarters and years where it's up 12%, up 115%. Very important to note the lumpiness. However, I will actually go and make a very bearish point on Tesla's energy business. And this is legit. I'm sure Jeremy's going to mention this. The current negotiating tools, aka tariffs that won't be in place forever and certainly not at these levels, particularly relating to some goods from China, particularly relating to batteries, are going to be a massive short-term headwind for Tesla's energy business. Because right now, despite the fact that they make their own cells, which go into their vehicles, the batteries going in Tesla's energy storage products come from China. If there's big fucking tariffs on the batteries going in these products, it's going to be a brutal financial impact on Tesla, on their energy products, until the tariffs go away, which they will. They're a negotiating tool. That said, There is such incredible demand for Tesla's energy products that I actually think there's a lot of pricing elasticity on these things. Because even if the cost of these products goes up substantially, they're such a no-brainer for utilities to stabilize the grid, for large companies, etc. This is not like a consumer purchase of a vehicle where consumers are super price sensitive. If your job at a company is to save and or make a fuck ton of money, and you look at the numbers on it as a big battery, they still make sense at meaningfully higher price points. But I will say it, no uncertain terms here, temporary tariffs on batteries made in China that Tesla currently puts in their energy products is a big financial headwind on their energy business.
Right? And if you look on a full year basis, energy generation and storage in 2024 was up 67%. Services and other revenue was up 27%. So that was great. But, we got problems, folks. We have problems. So in the latest quarter, energy generation and storage revenue is now down to 67% growth. From the previous quarter was at 113% growth. And services was at 31% growth year over year, now down to 15%. That's not even the worst part. That's a huge deceleration in both of those.
Oh boy. So I want to be reasonable to Jeremy here. I just want to go through some numbers. For the full year in 2020, Tesla's energy generation and storage revenue was just under $2 billion. 2021, it was $2.7 billion, not far off 3. In 2022, it was $3.9 billion. In 2023, it was $6 billion. And in 2024, it was $10 billion. Year over year growth of 67%. Now, I'm not very good at numbers, so let's do some counting here, right? Let's just round it a little bit, okay? So it goes from $2 billion in 2020 to $10 billion in 2024. Let me count. That's 1 year, but that doesn't count because that's the starting year. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a 5 times increase, 5 times, not 50%, not 5 times increase in energy revenue in 4 years. Again, I'm not very good at math, but I think that's more than 100% every year. And that is bad. Are we forgetting to zoom out a little bit? If we look here at Tesla's energy storage deployments, this is every quarter going back to Q1 2018. Now, call me crazy, call me a deluded Tesla fanboy, but I think that's a pretty positive trend, bruh. We've seen more than a 10x in less than 5 years in deployments per quarter. I mean, not to be that guy, but not only was Q4 a record quarter for both vehicle deliveries and energy storage deployments, but, quote, the energy business achieved another record in Q4 with its highest ever gross profit generation. But wait, there's more. Construction of Mega Factory Shanghai was completed in December and will begin ramping in the quarter. So, I mean, I don't want to be this guy, but I'm going to be this guy. We just heard apparently that the rate of growth on Tesla's energy business has slowed. What a disaster over a very short time frame. Brother, they built a whole fucking factory to make Megapacks and it only completed in December and it's about to start ramping as in this quarter. So, I'm not very smart, but is it just me, or if a company makes a factory to make products and then starts ramping production at that factory that makes the product, does that then not mean that you'll be able to make more of the products that you were concerned weren't growing at as fast a rate as they were previously, even though that rate was phenomenal? We saw a 5 times increase in 4 years in deployments. Oh boy, this is a hard one to watch, folks. I mean, it really is. Quick aside, by the way, I got to say, this is actually pretty funny, right? The most bearish point that's been made so far in this video was from me pointing out that the temporary tariffs being used as a negotiating tool on the cells going in Tesla's energy products is going to be a fucking brutal financial headwind. That's really bad. But again, energy is not a huge portion of Tesla's business yet, and they're transient. They'll go away to negotiate. But I'm the one that's made the big bearish point so far.
Cut in half type numbers. That's not even the worst part. Now we have to start comping against insanely tough numbers. So if you look at energy generation and storage revenue, $3 billion it did in Q2 2024. The latest quarter we did $2.7 billion. So there's a decent probability that energy generation and storage revenue is going to start going negative or very small growth rate.
So if you like to play funny financial games, then yeah, absolutely. If you want to compare next quarter with the strongest quarter out of the last handful, sure, you might see what looks like a decline on paper. But as I mentioned, Tesla's energy business is extremely volatile. Case in point, the number we see here in Q1 2025, $2.73 billion. In Q1, not 25, but 24, it was $1.63 billion. Meaning in 1 year, from Q1 24 to Q1 25, it's up like 60-something%. And again, it's an extremely volatile, lumpy business. If this entire segment just focused on the tariffs over the short term, I would have been buying it 100% all in. Yep, absolutely. Big headwind, but this is just silly.
Rates. Oh boy. Services and other revenue, right? Now we're going to have to start comping against these quarters where we are $2.6 billion, $2.7 billion, $2.8 billion of services and other revenue. Look at where we are at in this latest quarter, $2.6 billion. So the moral of the story is here, we got brutal comps coming, and the revenue growth from these two massive growth engines is going to slow and potentially even start going down. So then what are we going to have to go off of? Like, oh my gosh, right? Now you got to understand the Biden administration was extremely pro a company like Tesla, right?
So let's clarify. The Biden administration was actively hostile toward Tesla, intentionally snubbed them and didn't invite them to the EV summit, falsely stole Tesla's valor and credited GM with driving the whole industry towards electrification. The Biden administration harassed Tesla because of Elon, because Elon bad, because Elon had opinions, e.g. don't mutilate and sterilize children, those kind of things, how controversial. The Biden administration, again, was actively hostile toward Tesla, pissed away enormous amounts of money, including funding alleged charging networks, as opposed to, if they really cared about that, just help Tesla out with more rollout of their supercharging network, which Tesla's basically said, get out of my way, bitch. We'll do it for you. Here's a charging network. Hey, everyone, you can access this, blah, blah, blah. But of course, this is all irrelevant. I just wanted to mention, because, Jeremy, to be fair, right, he didn't say that the Biden administration was super supportive of Tesla, but companies like Tesla. But I did just want to point that out. The active hostility was unconscionable. Extreme corruption, completely brazen, out in the open, and despicable. But that's got nothing to do with this.
They're what they called Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, right? This was something that benefited a company like Tesla in one of the most direct ways you could possibly have, right? And all of this is going to start to come to an end over this next year or two. All this Inflation Reduction Act related stuff, right? And if you look at Tesla's battery production tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act could generate up to $250 million per quarter. Tesla has been a major recipient of federal infrastructure grants for building EV charging stations. Tesla's energy generation storage revenue has benefited from manufacturing credits with a total of $756 million for the year of 2024. Right? Huge. Like that whole Inflation Reduction Act the Biden administration did was so beneficial to Tesla. They made so much money off of that. That's all going bye-bye, folks. Then it's all going bye-bye, and that's not going to be good news for Tesla. Tesla was the third largest recipient of these funds since the program started.
So I just have to point out obvious things are obvious. One, Elon's on the record, none of these government incentives should even exist, but if they're there, you may as well take them, right? You've got a fiduciary responsibility to investors. However, I also want to mention that you'd think that since Tesla was making the most electric vehicles, the most batteries of a US manufacturer in the US, making the most energy storage products, and scaling the largest EV charging network, wouldn't you think they'd be the number one primary recipient, the third largest? No, not the second largest, but the largest recipient? And the other thing is, as we say, Tesla does not exist in a vacuum. 10 years ago, some of these incentives made sense. Today, they're a waste of taxpayer money. The EV transition is happening regardless. You don't need to throw money at consumers or companies. But if it's there, Tesla may as well take it. But as I mentioned, Tesla does not exist in a vacuum. So let's think outside the vacuum. If Tesla doesn't need these, and they don't, and the literal leader of the company, Elon Musk, is on the record saying that we don't need these and there shouldn't be incentives, they're unnecessary and a waste, and there are only the third largest recipient, what happens to all the companies trying to compete with Tesla, to whom these incentives are much more meaningful financially and actually might be keeping the companies afloat? Don't get me wrong, a few $100 million here and there every quarter, it's good money, but relative to the scale of Tesla's business, it's not a needle mover. If this is a slight negative for Tesla, it is a massive negative for companies trying to compete with them, with charging networks, with EVs, with batteries, you name it.
Right? No bueno. Now that leads us to the biggest services opportunity. The biggest services opportunity for Tesla is seen as FSD, right? If everybody that owns a Tesla all gets FSD plans and pays $99 a month or $199 a month, right? That would be great. But from my experience with the FSD product, it's a good product, but it's not perfect, and it's more annoying than just driving your own vehicle, is what I found. You have to stay on top of it more. It does a lot of annoying things where it doesn't drive human enough, I would call it. And it's not a great experience. It's a okay or good experience. It's the type of thing that if I lived in LA and I had to drive to work an hour each day, it would be worth getting FSD. But outside of somebody that's in stop and go traffic all the time, I don't see it being worth it. And so that big services opportunity is unfortunately just the product's not good enough to at the end of the day, everybody say, I'm going to go buy this. And you got to understand, even when it's really a great product and it's not just good, even when it's great, a lot of people are still not going to want it because it's going to be an extra $99 a month or $199 a month. And a lot of people just like driving at the end of the day.
So regarding Jeremy's points, it's true today Tesla FSD is not a must-have. It's a very nice to have, especially in some cities and some locations, but it's not a must-have. At some point, it will become a must-have, but not everyone can afford it, so I agree on that point as well. But a couple of very important underlying factors here. It is getting better over time, meaning it's going to be a must-have for more consumers over time. But even more important than that is the marginal cost for Tesla to offer FSD to a new customer is approximately zero, or if we translate that to Australian, fuck all. It's software, and it's software that already exists. If a customer buys FSD either outright or subscribes for $99 a month, it costs Tesla nothing. Press a fucking button, bam. Tesla already has millions of vehicles on roads today that do not subscribe to FSD. If in the future, 1 million of those vehicles subscribe, the cost to Tesla, fuck all. The revenue, the profit to Tesla, actually, let's do the math. What's $99 a month times 1 million? And that's per month. I don't even need a calculator for that. I mean, I know I make videos, so I'm not very good at math, but ready? 99 times 1 million is $99 million a month of pure profit to Tesla. And that's just to illustrate the point. Their existing fleet, a bunch of potential customers for recurring revenue, almost pure profit in the future as it becomes more useful, more of a must-have. Of course, that's actually not the big deal about FSD. FSD, the big deal isn't about the recurring revenue from people subscribing to FSD for their own vehicles, but what it will enable once it's fully unsupervised, which is autonomy, robotaxis, the whole focus of my Tesla thesis.
And so that's a whole situation we got to deal with, right? So the only question is now, with these growing categories that have been the growth engines of Tesla, is how bad are growth rates going to get over this next year? Are we going to be talking about energy?
Next year? I guess that's one time frame. Much more interested in next few decades, but hey, you do you.
Business going negative? Or are we going to be talking about single-digit growth? People are used to 100% type growth rates. Now we could be talking about 5%, 10% growth, negative numbers, services revenue. People were used to 30% revenue up on a year-over-year basis. And now we could be talking about that services and other revenue might be up like 5%, 10%. Oh my gosh, what happens if it goes negative? Then what do you have to go off of, right? Insane. So to recap so far, off just these 2 points, we have a rotten core business, and the exciting growth business is about to be no bueno. We got problems, big problems, folks. Number 3, it's a business without a purpose. And that is usually not a very good thing, especially for a company like Tesla that has a massive valuation. A business without a purpose. So if we go back 10, 15 years ago.
Sorry to have to do this, Jeremy, but I know exactly where this is going. I can see it now. Ready? What was their mission? Transition the world to sustainable energy. But now that's no longer the case. Why? Because, I don't know, Orange Man bad, or what do humanoid robots have to do with it? But I have to point this out. The number one way for Tesla, in addition to what they're already doing, which is sell electric vehicles, drive the cost down, push the whole industry towards producing electric vehicles at scale. Remember, Elon's on the record years ago saying even if Tesla fails, if we accelerate the whole industry to move to EVs, then our mission's been successful. By the way, spoiler alert, it has. The number one thing they can do right now is to increase the number of miles being driven on Earth in electric vehicles, which directly disrupts miles being driven in internal combustion engine vehicles, because almost the entire global fleet today is still ICE vehicles. How do they do that? Autonomy, massively higher utilization rate than personally owned vehicles. The most mission-aligned thing Tesla could possibly do in terms of transitioning the world to sustainable energy from where they're at today, because they've already forced the whole automotive industry to move to EVs, is to rapidly deploy a fleet of autonomous electric vehicles at a cost to consumers that is so compelling that they will choose to use these over Uber, taxi, Lyft, and even personally owned vehicles. I jumped the gun, what I can see already, because, you know, a company without a purpose, and and I can see Trump here and a thing. I don't know where this is going, but I do also just want to add something, because a lot of people, I mean, I said it before, I said, like with the woke mind virus, right? If the United States implodes, then everyone's fucked. Tesla's fucked and their mission's fucked, okay? Obvious things are obvious. Something needed to happen. Elon Musk's helping the US, which will directly help Tesla, which then allows Tesla to continue carrying out their mission. I can see where this is going already. What does Trump have to do with this? Trump hates electric vehicles. Trump. I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm not, I just would like this to be a matter of record that I called it before it happened, because obvious things are obvious.
Tesla's like mission, like what are they here for, right? What is their purpose? What are they going after? It was very clear. To transition the world to sustainable energy, we're going to save the planet. That was Tesla's pitch. And even when I was investing in the stock back in 2019, it was very clear that's what Elon was trying to do. And he would even say that we're trying to transition the world to sustainable energy. We're trying to save the planet, right? It's like this big mission we're going after, right? That mission is dead. It's done for. Once Elon started to move more and more to the right into the Republican Party, we know the Republican Party does not take climate change or any of this stuff or sustainable. They don't take any of this stuff serious.
So yeah, of course, we know the stereotypes. There's a lot of truth in this. I'm not going to argue with Jeremy on that point. That being said, Elon didn't move to the right. The left just moved extremely far left. All of that being said, Elon Musk's involvement with the current Trump administration, the Department of Government Efficiency, who he endorsed for presidential candidate, does not have any effect on Tesla's mission or the massive outsized impact on transitioning the world to sustainable energy generation, storage and supply that rapidly deploying a fleet of autonomous electric vehicles will have. That doesn't change. Now, it is true that the small number of people out there who are so desperate for the approval of others that they will virtue signal to their social circle, I'm buying this. Look, I bought a Tesla because I care about the environment. I'm a good person. I hate myself. Tell me I'm a good person so I don't feel so depressed tonight, please. Those people, yeah, sure. They're no longer going to be telling the world they'll buy a Tesla, or they're thinking about it, even though most of them, can't even afford to buy a Tesla. But virtue signalers aside, Tesla's still selling around 1.8 million electric vehicles per year. They're still helping transition the energy grid to sustainable energy by their massive batteries. And they're still pursuing autonomy, which is going to have the biggest, far and away, the biggest impact in terms of their mission of any of their products ever. By miles, literal miles, by the way. Get it? Because of utilization rate. So still zero actual reasonable points here. And the one point that could have been made about the tariffs and the battery cells going into energy storage products wasn't even mentioned, which is kind of wild. Because, that's actually a really bearish thing, at least to discuss margins and profitability on the energy business until the tariffs go away. And this is not looking good. We're not even halfway in.
We know that, right? And so once you start to align yourself with the right, your whole mission of what you were trying to do is now out the window. So now you have no mission, right? And me personally, I would say 80% of the people I know for voted Trump, right? I know a lot of people that are business owners, a lot of people with money. And I know the media might try to pitch things as the left is the people with the money. No. Trust me. The people that I all know in real life that have money, they vote right. Okay. And so they vote Trump. They lean right. 80% of the people I know. Of that 80%, I would say at least half, because I talked with these folks, what their opinion is on this and this and this. I would say at least half of those folks believe climate change is a hoax.
So this may be true, anecdotal. He's definitely got a point. On the right, typically less people think that the world's going to be 600 kilometres underwater tomorrow if we don't stop eating food and having showers. A lot of those folks think that's a load of BS. But people don't buy Tesla vehicles because they think that climate change is an emergency. Many years ago, a small number of people who desperately need your approval because they have crippling self-hatred and severe depression and need to feel good, so I'll just virtue signal however I can. They would tell you, I might buy a Tesla because climate change. But when those people are done, they had more than a decade-long opportunity to virtue signal and buy a Tesla, or tell everyone they buy a Tesla, or tell everyone they'd love to buy a Tesla, but they can't afford one, but, go climate. But that's toast. People buy Teslas today because they're incredible products. In fact, there are many people today who absolutely fit the stereotype of the climate change is a hoax, right-leaning, super conservative people who are buying Tesla vehicles today specifically to support Elon Musk because of his involvement in the Department of Government Efficiency. The most recent well-known example of this was the president of the US Oil and Gas Association buying a Tesla Model S and posting about it, pointing out the irony. Let me just say, imagine that for some reason iPhones were good for the environment or good for the climate. Right? Do you think people are buying them today because of that or because they're a great product? Bro, come on, really. This is a weak argument. The Venn diagram between people who virtue signal and or really care about their climate and people who can afford to buy a Tesla but haven't already purchased one, that overlap there in the middle is tiny because the return on virtue signaling has decreased exponentially over time. If you really want to score the most virtue signaling points among your social circle, you buy a Tesla instantly. Years ago, the Model S, to show everybody what a good person you are and how seriously you take the climate catastrophe. You don't wait until 15 years after the company's IPO'd and 12, 13 years after the Model S comes out before you buy a Tesla to tell everybody what a good person you are. You do it as soon as possible. So again, I'm really not buying this argument. And of course, there's always two sides to the coin. I mentioned there's a ton of conservatives now who actually do think that climate change is a hoax. Whether or not they're right, that's a different matter. Who are literally buying Tesla vehicles today. It's actually possible to think climate change is a hoax and to think Tesla makes amazing fucking vehicles. Man, this is a rough one. I still haven't heard a single point that I'll go, you know what, that's actually super, super valid. Anyone watching, let me know in the comments below if you think climate change is a hoax and you own a Tesla.
A hoax, as in it's not real. They believe that fossil fuels are not bad and you could burn all the...
By the way, I do just want to add something on this because, it gets on my goat a little bit, okay? There's a subset of people today who are like super retarded, like virtue signal, super retarded, brain dead, who do not understand that if people stopped using fossil fuels today, the entire global economy would implode and we'd all be living in poverty. Most humans would die, we'd go extinct, there'd be no food, we'd be fucked. It's obviously not sustainable because we'll eventually run out of fossil fuels. So that is reason enough to transition off them. But people today demonize fossil fuels, okay? Every developing nation on the world is dependent on fossil fuels for prosperity, for growth, to improve their living conditions, their opportunities, for healthcare. It's easy for somebody living in a developed nation to point to think of fossil fuels are bad. But bro, we're still dependent on them. We have to transition slowly, as fast as we can, but still slowly. It's got to be a process. And I'm not saying that Jeremy's saying this, but I am just pointing out, on a side note, this demonization of fossil fuels is absurd. It's going to take decades for the world to fully transition. And it has to happen. Whether or not there's any impact on the climate is irrelevant. We'll eventually run out of fossil fuels, so that alone is enough reason. But today, use of fossil fuels is necessary. And I'm sick of people demonizing, and again, I'm not saying Jeremy is, but just people in general demonizing fossil fuel use. Go fuck yourself. How do you think it feels to live in Africa or India or another developing nation to struggle to put food on the table? The dinosaur juice is necessary for now.
Oil you want, all the coal you want, nothing bad's going to happen. And that's a massive segment of the right. So it's clear as day, like that whole mission Tesla used to go after 5, 10, 15 years ago, it's dead. It's done for now at this point.
No, bro, come on, man. No. Tesla's ability to capture desperate virtue signaling drones who want to show everybody they're a good person because they care about the environment, therefore Tesla good, I'll buy a Tesla, look at me, virtue signal approved, please. Yeah, go on. But their mission isn't actually about people virtue signaling to their social circle about what a good person they are via Tesla. Their mission is actually physically assisting in transitioning the world to sustainable energy, like, for example, making batteries, selling electric vehicles, scaling a fleet of autonomous electric vehicles. That's the actual reality. That's their mission, and that's still on track. Sorry, but not buying this point either. What are we, like 0 from 8 points or something?
Point in time, right? So, where does your mission go from here if you're Tesla? Well, you can say, well, we want to be Uber, but without the driver inside, okay? Is that passionate of a mission to...
Oh, fuck me, dude. I'm doing the biggest facepalm. I mean, I joined the dots already in this video, right? Autonomous vehicles, or even if they're not autonomous, but if they're rideshare vehicles, the utilization rate versus a personally owned vehicle is like at least 5 times as many miles per week. So the biggest return on investment of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy is to displace 1 mile driven in an internal combustion engine vehicle with 1 mile driven in an electric vehicle. But if you can replace 5 miles at a higher ratio because of ride hail, you get a much bigger return. You get a 5 times return on that mission. This is wild to see, the lack of, dig a bit deeper, man. The whole purpose of Tesla Robotaxis isn't to be an Uber without the driver. It's to create an unarguable, incredible incentive for consumers to start using electric autonomous vehicles because they're ubiquitous, they arrive almost instantly, and they're meaningfully cheaper than alternatives like Uber and Lyft, because that's going to displace ICE vehicles with electric vehicle miles, right? Oh, man. Oh, jeez. This is so hard, dude.
To replace Uber with no driver, you're going from we're saving the planet, we're saving this beautiful thing that is Earth, that humanity has, to we want to replace Uber without a driver. Come on, man. You think that's a mission to go after? Like, what are we talking about here, right? I mean, what a step down. Like, we're going to save the planet we want to be Uber? Come on.
Dude, I'm lost for words. I think, what are we, like halfway through now? I think so far that's the story of this thesis on Tesla. It's just a surface level reasoning. Think 1 layer deep. Again, I repeat, Tesla's not trying to be Uber without a driver. They're trying to displace miles driven in internal combustion engine vehicles with miles driven in electric vehicles. And the best way to do that is to have a product, a service that allows consumers for a much lower cost per mile than today's Uber or Lyft to use an electric vehicle in a comparable way, aka electric robotaxis. It's crazy, man. This is exactly in line with their mission. In fact, it's an accelerant to their mission.
You say, well, we want to be an AI company. That's going to be our big mission. We want to be an AI company. You and everybody else. Who doesn't want to be an AI company? Every freaking big tech company wants to be an AI company. Every single one of them's pitching, we're investing all this money, we're AI. That's not some big mission to go after. Come on, man. Everybody's going to be an AI company, right?
And so, again, a quick side note on that. The AI is the enabler of autonomy. Like, it's a necessary piece of the puzzle and a necessary bridge between Tesla's mission, their goal, and actually achieving it. Without the AI, there's no driverless vehicles, meaning you don't have a cost advantage over Uber, Lyft, taxis, and so on. Wow.
You say, we're going to make robots so you don't have to hire landscapers. You can fire your landscapers, right? That's not a great mission to go after. Come on. I'm going to make robots so I can fire my landscapers and fire my pool man and, you can fire your house cleaner and all that stuff, right? And plus, we know how this ends. You ever seen iRobot? We know how this movie ends. It's not pretty, right? It's not.
So I get the trolling with the AI doomsday scenarios. Just to be clear, regarding Tesla's humanoid robots, if successful, a fleet of hundreds of millions, then ultimately billions of intelligent and increasingly capable humanoid robots will, in essence, usher in an era of superabundance where everyone on Earth can have any good product or service for near zero cost. I mean, is that not the most inspiring mission you could possibly imagine? And just to be clear, fully sustainably, right? You transition the world's entire economy to sustainable energy generation, storage, and supply. Then you have an excess, an abundance of energy. Then you scale up a fleet of humanoid robots that operate on that abundance of energy, dramatically driving down the cost of goods and services to near zero for literally every human on Earth, and we enter an era of abundance, a sustainable era of abundance. I mean, bro, that is a pretty exciting mission to me.
Not pretty how it ends. Come on, man. But by the way, I can't wait to fire my 10-year-old because, I don't think he's been doing a very good job of cleaning my fountain in the front yard. And I can't wait to tell him, hey, our robot's here to replace you, boy. You lost your job, right? And by the way, all you guys that are rooting for these robots and you're like so happy Tesla's going to be making these robots someday, which probably isn't going to be till the 2030s, by the way. It's not happening anytime soon. But you're so thrilled about this. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to fire all these people. I can't wait to the robots take over. Listen, man, all I hear is complaints constantly from men that they can't get a freaking date. They're on these dates.
Losers, not men. Bro, if you can't get a date, leave your fucking house and interact with some human beings. It's not hard.
Naps, they can't get a date, right? Dude, you think it's bad now? Just wait till the robots are here. Wait till the robots are here. Oh my gosh. You think it's hard getting a date now? Just wait till the robots, they're going to beat up everybody. Women aren't going to need any protection from man anymore. The robot's going to handle that. Plus, they're going to not get tired in bed after 2 minutes like you guys.
Okay, credit where it's due. Some pretty funny content here. I mean, it's true, by the way. To Jeremy's earlier point, right, there is actually going to be a massive crisis of meaning and purpose, especially among men when robots can do everything a man can do better, including their wife. But it's still going to happen. So better start thinking about what value you can add outside of laying down a bit of pipe for a couple of minutes, plus protecting and providing, because it's happening regardless. But fair point. Big crisis of meaning and purpose inbound.
Guys that need a jelly roll after 2 mints, okay? Give me a chili dog. I'm tired. I need a chili dog, baby. Sorry about this. 4, okay? Fourth point here. All our best customers hate us. They all freaking hate Tesla. All our best customers. When you think about, why is Tesla an $800 billion market cap, right? Why has Tesla had all this success? It's from 3 groups of people. Liberals, Europeans, and Chinese. If you look at who actually buys Teslas and who supported Elon and supported the brand all these years, liberals, Europeans, and Chinese. That's not a debate. That's a fact, right? And now the liberals hate Tesla with a passion.
I'd just like to add a caveat, the libtards, which is a subset of liberals. I'd also like to point out that if it's true that liberals, Europeans, and Chinese love Tesla, does that not mean that literally every other group of people that you can categorize not on this list could potentially grow to love Tesla in the future, meaning there's still plenty of customers out there?
Because of all the stuff Elon's tweeted over the past number of years and all the stuff and all his sentiment and negativity toward liberals. Liberals, dude, they have the worst opinion of Elon Musk. And it used to be they were the biggest backers. It's flipped 100% now. The Europeans used to love Elon. They used to love Tesla. Boom, that's out the window. And the Chinese, because of now Elon Musk's, basically connection with Trump and how those two are kind of tied. Now with all this negativity at China, oh my gosh, big problems, right? Now, you think about some of the situations that have happened over the years that really hurt a brand and hurt.
So again, to be fair to Jeremy, there's definitely some subset of liberals, libtards, who have got the new software update. The current thing is Elon bad. They're very loud, but they don't really move the needle. But most people, even on the political left, they're actually extremely reasonable. For example, they don't think it's okay for men competing in women's sports or to mutilate and sterilize children. Things that Elon's kind of been outspoken on. And I can see already from these thumbnails, I think Jeremy is about to conflate a bunch of far left debacles from libtards the majority of reasonable people weren't in line with and didn't support, causing brand damage, with the small number of far-left libtards who've absolutely lost their shit because Elon Musk opposes their outrageous, insane, truly dangerous ideologies. Like, for example, Bud Light, I can see where this is going, right? The backlash regarding Bud Light coming from its core customer base was in response to Bud Light hiring a moron who thought it was a great idea to insult Bud Light customers and women by plastering their products with a man wearing woman face, demeaning and insulting women the world over. I suspect on screen now there might be some mention of the support of the domestic terrorist organisation and money siphoning scam that most people saw through pretty quickly. And then, of course, there's Target, who were selling clothing to children. I don't even know what it's called, but like to tuck boys' junk away so they look like women, okay? Trans insanity trying to confuse young children. Most reasonable people were not okay with this. The backlash, in particular that Bud Light and Target faced, was from the vast majority of reasonable people out there. But see, here's the problem. Most of the mainstream media are not reasonable. And most of the loud voices in the political left today are not reasonable either. And if you inform your worldview on what you're hearing shrieking leftist politicians and the mainstream media say, you'd be under the impression that the majority of people think it's a great idea to insult and demean women. Shout out to Bud Light. Or to confuse young, vulnerable children. I think what Jeremy's conflating here is Elon Musk standing up for reasonable things that the majority of Americans and people globally actually think are reasonable. He's conflating those with Elon Musk having some deranged, extremely unpopular views and opinions that are totally unhinged. I mean, someone remind me, who won the most recent presidential election? Oh, that's right. It was the guy who campaigned on sending back millions and millions of criminal, illegal aliens who were let into the country, the man who campaigned on getting men out of women's sports, the man who campaigned on getting racial indoctrination and gender ideology out of schools. Right. Man, this is going to be the longest video I've ever recorded, I think. Holy shit.
A company or business or whatever, right? The Colin Kaepernick situation was very negative for the NFL over that next several years. And, you know, I feel like the NFL's kind of moved past that now, but it was an overhang on the NFL because of, you know, how some people felt that they boycotted the NFL for years. I don't want to watch the NFL because of the Colin Kaepernick situation, right? Bud Light, now look at Bud Light sales numbers over the past year or so. Awful. Very big negative thing that happened in regards to Bud Light. Target wanted to sell some items that, you know, some people weren't too fond of, and it hurt Target sales massively, right? Let me be very clear. Those situations were child's play in regards to their brands compared to what Elon Musk has done to the Tesla brand now at this point in time. Like, this is like a nuke compared to like a little BB in terms of these other situations. These were like the warm-ups, and Elon Musk has shown us, like, here's how to absolutely devastate your brand, right? Absolutely incredible.
Oh, shit, son. This is truly something else. I don't know what world Jeremy lives in terms of social circle or the internet bubble, to have got the impression that the scale of damage Elon has done to Tesla's brand is monumental in comparison to Target trying to confuse young children with gender ideology, Bud Light insulting its entire demographic and their wives. I think this is a case of gobbling up the propaganda hook, line and sinker. Now, it's definitely true. There's a small number of virtue signalling people that are shrieking at the moment. And there's some countries in particular, I can see Europe right now. I can say for a fact, I've got some friends in Germany, right? Germans are officially the most retarded and easily propagandized people on the planet currently. Obviously, there's exceptions, some of my friends among them. But make no mistake, the average German citizen is so retarded and so completely trusting of the mainstream media that whatever propaganda is being broadcast into their homes, they will believe. Like, if you're a German friend of mine, or a viewer, let me know in the comments below. Is this true? Do most people you know believe everything they see in the mainstream media in Germany? Of course, it's not like it's ever happened previously where Germans, you know, just took on board a whole lot of propaganda and didn't end well, right? Now, I hope that we're not going to be looking at this. Surely this isn't going to be Q1 data in Germany, right? Because in addition to some of the propaganda, which is effective on some people, there was the global Model Y changeover, right? Surely we're not going there, are we, Jeremy?
Now, if you look at the Tesla sales drop in Europe, it's dramatic. It's dramatic. Country by country. You just go through it, man. And keep in mind, next quarter is going to likely be even worse in regards to this. And if you think this is some quick fix that like Tesla's going to magically, you know, be able to fix this, or Elon Musk is going to be able to magically fix his brand, and all of a sudden the liberals are all going to love Tesla again, and all the Europeans are going to love Tesla again, and the Chinese. Dude, it's going to take years to rebuild the brand.
So this is awkward. I don't think he's going to mention the Model Y changeover that occurred globally. And we discussed many times in this video, the world's best-selling vehicle was Tesla's Model Y. And in today's episode of Obvious Things Are Obvious, if you have a single product that accounts for the majority of your revenue, the majority of your vehicle sales, and you make massive changes to that product and make it significantly more compelling for about the same price, and it's a complicated manufactured object, and you change over your production lines that produce the previous generation of that vehicle in the same quarter that you begin then ramping production of the new version of that vehicle, and there's no magic instantly ramp to volume production button on the new version, would it not then follow that you're going to see a dramatic decline in volumes, specifically due to the changeover of your best-selling vehicle, which is carrying the company in terms of volumes? And would it not then follow that you're inevitably going to see a quarter-over-quarter or even year-over-year decline in vehicle deliveries in every region that you've just changed over your highest volume vehicle that's carrying the fucking company? I mean, my goodness, man. It's a clean sweep so far. I still haven't heard one point that made sense. Like, I feel like this is a setup. Like, if you told me, pretend you're Gordon Johnson for a day, right? I could come up with these same kind of arguments and just go one level deep and not actually point out on Model Y changeover, you know, the two sides to the coin, all the conservatives now buying a Tesla just to support Elon and Doge. Bro, what the fuck am I watching?
This is not going to be just forgotten. The Europeans are not just going to forget about all this stuff that's happened. The liberals are not just going to forget about all this stuff that's happened. The Chinese are not just going to forget about. It's going to take 5-10 years to recover the brand, if that even happens. And there's no guarantee that that's even going to happen, by the way. But this is going to be like, no, like, oh, it's just going to magically, happen. And if you think like all the conservatives are all going to trade in their F-150s and their Silverados to go drive a Cybertruck around, I got news for you, that ain't happening.
Now, I don't want to kick a guy when he's down, so I'm not going to dig up many dozens of anecdotal examples of literally exactly that happening, including, former actors, guys like Dean Cain, conservative commentators, content creators, podcasters, politicians, etc., who are literally doing exactly that very thing, because that'd just be too easy. Nor will I dig up any of the examples of people literally driving F-150s and coal rolling the anti-Tesla protesters. I mean, the irony there, because that would just be too easy.
Part 5. We have a part-time CEO in this.
So, I mean, yeah, that's actually true. Although technically, I guess, since he works like twice as many hours a week, maybe you could say full-time. But this has been the case like for Tesla's entire existence. It's been running SpaceX and Tesla. Boring Company was founded, 2016, 2017? Neuralink, I think 2015. Then again, there was also the founding of OpenAI. It was pretty hands-on early days. There's been the Twitter acquisition, now X. There's been the startup of XAI. There's been fathering countless children, including plenty that you don't know about yet. Wait, what? Constant appearances, media, blah, 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 blah. Did I forget anything? I probably did. I mean, the guy's got a lot of hands and a lot of pies and a lot of buns in a lot of ovens. So, in short, it's true, technically. Not 100% of Elon's time is focused on Tesla, but it never has been, at least not since they've been a publicly traded company. So surely that's not what we're about to hear, right? Right?
This was the last straw. I was hoping on that conference call, Elon was going to say, I'm fully focused my attention on Tesla, I'm leaving Doge, all that stuff behind. No, we have a part-time CEO. Now, it's a great saying, you might have heard this before, especially if you're involved in sports, right? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And we have a CEO at Tesla that no longer works hard at Tesla, right? Once again, not up for debate, it's a fact, right?
Geez, that's a pretty insulting statement. And I'm sure Jeremy is aware of this, right? He's a pretty successful guy in business. The thing that matters at the end of the day is not time, but results produced. Now, it takes time to produce results, but some people can produce outsized results in a lot less time than others. If this were 2018 production hell, it would have been extremely inappropriate and not cool at all for Elon to get involved in Department of Government Efficiency. Tesla was on life support. He needed to be there every day. But it's not 2018. Tesla's data flywheel with autonomy is humming along. He's as hands-on as necessary. He's also simultaneously trying to colonize Mars, making massive progress with SpaceX. Managed to start up XAI as well. No one seemed to care about that, which is kind of weird. Overtook Twitter, now X. Still managing to play video games recreationally as well. Of course, in Jeremy's defense, if you actually think Tesla sales are collapsing and they don't have future products coming and you're destroying the Tesla brand, I totally understand his point, but it's just not valid. Here's another thing to say. What could Elon Musk have done differently over the past however long he's been a quote part-time CEO for Tesla to meaningfully have improved the business? Like, for example, to have been working on more affordable vehicles. Oh, wait, they're coming. To be rapidly moving towards autonomy. Oh, wait, that's happening in June in Austin. To be investing aggressively in AI. Oh, wait, that's already happened as well. Built the world's fastest, biggest training supercluster. Oh, that's happening as well. Yeah, I think for a part-time CEO, he's doing actually pretty well in terms of actual results, the things that matter.
Right. Now, if we go talk about Tesla prior to Rona, right? And we think about where Tesla was prior to Rona, prior to 2020. Basically the time period I was investing in Tesla back in that like 2018, 2019 timeframe, right? I could confidently say that Tesla at that time was 5 to 7 years ahead of US and EU competition. So you could put them against Ford or GM or Volkswagen or Toyota or Honda or Hyundai or Kia or whoever you want to put them against. They were, 5 to 7 years ahead. We'll just call it any competition outside of China. Let's just call it that, okay? Because even the Asian competitors, 5 to 7 years ahead, ex-China, right? Now, in terms of strictly China, back then, I would say Tesla was about 3 to 5 years ahead of the competition in
Reasonable statements, yep. I'm on board with this, generally speaking, yeah. Sounds about right.
China at that particular time, right? So we were way out in front, and then there's a reason I'm showing Steve Jobs there, because it was always, Steve Jobs was always trying to have Apple back when he was at Apple. He always wanted to have Apple not just ahead of the competition, he wanted to have them years ahead of the competition. It wasn't good enough to just be, our tech is here. No, he wanted to be like 5 years ahead, and it used to be a famous thing that Steve Jobs would have Apple 5 years ahead of the competition, right? Here's where we're at now, in my opinion. We're only like 1 to 2 years ahead of the non-Chinese competition. I'm looking at many of these EVs that are coming out that I could buy now in the US, and I'm looking at the range of the vehicles, the specs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not far off of Tesla, and some of them are actually even slightly ahead.
Now, we know that Jeremy's an investor, right? He'll build his whole brand on that. So I suspect now we're going to hear how many years away these companies are from making comparable profits to Tesla on comparable vehicles, because obviously it's one thing to produce and sell a vehicle to consumers with similar range, similar features, I guess, etc., right? But since we're all investors here, the real measure of how far away a company is from another in terms of time would actually be how long until they're producing the same profit on the same type of vehicle, right? Wouldn't that be the fair measure? Because some dude from his garage could build a vehicle, put it on roads, and have more range than a Tesla today, but it might have cost him $700,000 in 3 years of his time to put it together. So the real measure, wouldn't it, if we're all investors here, the real measure then would not be how much range or whatever other metric that's external, but profitably producing that product, right? Wouldn't that be the metric to focus on? What would be a better metric than that? And then maybe the way to think about it would be just at a really high level to sort of simplify things. Why not then just look at their entire business and say, okay, how many years or months are the so-called competition to Tesla away from making the same kind of profits as a business per quarter or per year that Tesla is today? Would that be a fair measure? After all, in the game of business, you need to make a profit eventually to stay in business. What do you guys think? What's the real measure of the competition having been caught up from an investment point of view? Offering comparable specs or making comparable profits on your products?
So now we're at a moment where I feel like the competition is catching up in a major way in regards to the non-Chinese competition, okay? And at this point in China, I can't even confidently say we're ahead of the competition anymore in China. I cannot confidently say that. When I see the product that's out there in the Chinese market, I cannot say like, oh, we're ahead of the Chinese. No, not anymore. So we have blown a lead. This is like when the Patriots played the Falcons and the Falcons blew that crazy lead in the Super Bowl. That's how I feel in regards to Tesla. I'm like, dude, we were so far ahead of everybody. It wasn't even close.
Well, the head scratching continues. Best-selling vehicle in China 2 years in a row, made by Tesla. Highest profit per electric vehicle sold in China, Tesla. I guess I must be missing something. It might just be my Elon deriding Tesla fanaticism that's preventing me from seeing things clearly, I guess.
Everybody was considered a joke compared to Tesla. We used to laugh about the competition's coming. We used to laugh about it. But then when you take your eye off the prize for several years, you know what happens? The competition that used to be a joke actually starts to catch up and actually starts to get there. And you're like, freak, man, we were celebrating, popping champagne. And meanwhile, the competition kept working, kept focused, and it happened, right? And so what happened here? Well, Elon Musk took his eye off the ball, right? I would say things really started to go south when back in April of 2022, which is 3 years ago, right? Musk made the offer to buy Twitter. At that moment, that's when Elon Musk's attention started to be diverted away from Tesla in a substantial way, right? And all of a sudden, he started focusing on X and that acquisition, and then trying to get X and cleaning out the employees, and he brought the sink into the office. And
just, by the way, I want to add something super important. Elon doesn't buy Twitter, possibly the end of civilization as we know it, not hyperbole. Now, some people just don't understand that, and some people do. It had to happen. And if it didn't happen, mate, Tesla was doomed, the US was doomed, everyone was doomed. I've covered this before. It's getting very long, this video, but the short story, and I was personally a recipient of this. I was getting fucked with constantly by old Twitter. Shadow banned. Why? Because I said, men who think they're their women are actually still men and they're mentally ill, shouldn't mutilate and sterilise children. I was getting shadow banned, put in timeout for a week for shit like that. My account was disappearing. Never mind the interference in the US presidential election in 2020. What laptop? And the scamdemic, people couldn't talk out. I don't think people understand. Many people still don't understand, right? There was an asteroid hurtling toward Earth. Someone had to do something. And Elon Musk was one of the few people in a position to do so, and the only one with the foresight, vision, and courage to actually do it. This had to happen. Again, of course, what are you talking about? You're such a fucking Elon day rider, bro. You're so deluded. What are you talking about, bro? Shut the fuck up. You sound like one of the dinosaurs, 65 million years ago. Dinosaur A's like, hey, bro, I think that big shiny thing in the sky that keeps getting bigger every day might wipe us all out. Our dinosaur's like, what are you talking about, bro? Shut the fuck up and just eat some grass. Doge was round 2 of this, by the way. Had to happen. Some people get it, some people don't.
All the stuff that happened there, right? And then he started moving more and more toward political tweets and started moving more and more to the right. And just, it was clear as day, like, this man is not spending a good chunk of time at all on Tesla anymore, right? No, if you think about Elon, right? Elon made his money 3 big ways, okay? His first big way of making money was actually from a company he started, which was kind of like an online bank. Back when that was like not even a big thing, he saw an opportunity there to basically kind of create an online bank, which then later merged with a digital wallet company that ended up becoming PayPal essentially. So he saw this like vision before other people saw it, had little to no competition, and was able to go in there and create a big business and got a windfall of money from that, right?
Just to be clear, Zip2 was the first thing, online mapping service, newspaper shit, blah, blah, blah. There's a few little things before PayPal, but PayPal was the real big win. It'd be kind of ironic if Jeremy's just pointing out Elon Musk, how he made most of his money was executing on long-term vision when everyone thought he was crazy, seeing opportunities or risks where no one else saw them, and then executing. And that would be pretty fucking ironic when Robotaxis are around the corner.
The second way he made a ton of money is SpaceX, right? No competition once again. SpaceX had no competition when they were doing all that stuff, right? Like there wasn't like, there's this company, right? Blue Origin obviously has been something that's gotten more popular over the past 5-7 years, Jeff Bezos' company. But at the end of the day, like SpaceX really had no competition. So if you look at these ways of making money, no real competition there he had. He had no real competition when it came to SpaceX.
Ooh, now that's awkward. I'm not going to rub salt into a wound, so I won't show both founding years, but Blue Origin was founded in September in 2000. I encourage everybody to do some homework and find out when SpaceX was founded. Because back in 2000, Jeff Bezos was already a multi-billionaire, very deep pockets, and, well, like I said, do your homework, find out when SpaceX was founded, see how that one worked out.
And then Tesla, same exact thing. Like, everybody didn't start even taking EVs serious until really the past few years, right? And so
Tesla was the reason that happened, just for the record. That being said, even back as far as like 1999, there were some electric vehicles on the market. They just kind of sucked. And with SpaceX, there were companies trying to launch, just no one was particularly successful over time.
Tesla for the longest time had no serious competition. So Elon made his great fortune from all these things that he would see before other people saw it, and it, basically had no serious competition at all.
Oh man, this is awkward, but I'm going to have to say it. Like in unrelated matters, generalized autonomy, vision only, no one saw it, yikes.
Well, that's changed now, okay? If you look at like Twitter, for instance, he bought that, it was valued at $44 billion. The valuation's gotten supposedly all the way down to $12 billion. We don't know, how low it's gotten.
Actually, we do know they recently, I believe, raised again or had a new valuation done and back to square one, approximately $44 billion. It did collapse to about half that price in terms of valuation, but it's back where it started about 2 years ago. And the company, what was it? I think they increased their profits like 47% or something ridiculous. Actually, that might have been their gross profit. It went from like 10% to like 47% or something ridiculous. An insane turnaround on a company. But yeah, just to be clear, currently valued roughly $44 billion at purchase price, but the company itself is many times more profitable on each dollar of revenue now and still just getting started.
Talking about maybe it's back to its old valuation of $44 billion now, right?
There we go. Yeah, he mentioned it.
But the moral of the story is Elon Musk, it doesn't look like he's made any money from X at all over the past 3 years of owning that, right?
Should we? Yeah, we're going to. Could we not have probably said the same thing for Tesla in the first 3 years of its ownership / leadership of Musk? Same with SpaceX. I mean, these huge disruptions do take time. Like, I don't want to be unreasonable to Jeremy here, but if we're going through Musk's history of how he made his money, we're talking about companies like SpaceX, Tesla, we're talking roughly 20-year-old enterprises, and they've made a packet and are in unassailable leads. The fact that Musk buys Twitter the valuation gets cut in half, and then 2 years later, 3 years later, it's now back to the original valuation, meaning it's doubled in value since its decline, its low point in just a couple of years. I mean, anyone want to take a guess what X is going to be worth once it's 20 years old?
It's tough to compete with the big dogs. He's got to compete head-to-head with Meta. He's got to compete head-to-head with the Chinese with their TikTok app in those sort of social medias. He's learning it's tough when you got to compete with big dogs, right? Additionally, now we're going to go into this rideshare market that he talks so arrogantly, cocky about. He thinks, Tesla's won. You just hear it in his voice. He talks so.
Is he talking about me right now? Trolling aside, Tesla has won. I mean, God, I'm going to say it as arrogantly and as cockily, even more than Musk does. Tesla's won. Waymo's fucked. Costs them about 5 times as much money to put a piece of hardware on roads, and they can't produce them as fast as Tesla. They don't even produce them. They have to pay someone else to produce them. They don't have a generalized solution. They're operating a service now. They're losing a lot of money doing so, but they are operating a service now. But they can't scale rapidly. They have to pre-map everything in high definition with LiDAR. It's like training a blind person to walk through a hedge maze. Yep, take 5 steps here and 3 steps here. As long as nothing changes, the hedge maze stays the same. You'll be fine. This is not the same as teaching a vehicle to drive, period. Being able to deploy it widely and rapidly. The reason Musk and myself talk so arrogantly about autonomy, might I arrogantly suggest, is because our brains work, we've used them, and we can see how this plays out. Sorry, not sorry. This is one of the big mistakes I see people make when they're trying to understand what's happening with autonomy in Tesla. They generally just don't understand the distinction between what Waymo is doing, their strategy, their technology, and how they're achieving their service versus Tesla. They don't get it. There's no other way to say it. They just don't understand. And they can't articulate the distinction between what Tesla's done with the generalized solution, which is like a human. You learn to drive, period. You go to another city you've never driven in before, you get behind the wheel, and you don't start mowing people down because wait for it, how to drive. You can't do that with the Waymo. If it doesn't have all the guard rails and safety nets of pre-mapping in HD, bouncing a laser off every square inch of the environment in which you're going to drive and locking it in, geofencing it in, it can't operate safely. Whereas we can see Tesla FSD supervised. We can see when a customer uses FSD supervised anywhere on Earth that it's available right now. We can watch what it's capable of doing without having had pre-mapping in HD ahead of time. And then this is the part where we use our brains, even if it hurts, and we go, that does kind of seem like a generalized solution. A great example recently was FSD finally becoming available in China. We can see it navigating dirt roads, construction sites seamlessly. It's not perfect, but that's not the point, because investing is not about today. It's about the future. We clearly can see evidence everywhere that Tesla has created a generalized solution, vehicles that know how to drive relatively well, period, as opposed to having been trained how to drive in a safe little pre-mapped sandpit. So this is the part, again, where we use our brains, even if it hurts. And we think if Tesla has developed a generalized solution and that software continues to become more capable over time, then at some point it's going to be as safe as a human driver. And at some point beyond that, it's going to be much safer than a human driver. And since it's literally a software update and it's a general solution, so it works essentially everywhere, roughly the same, that means Tesla's going to be able to rapidly deploy a fleet of vehicles, existing vehicles with a software update, plus build more cybercabs, dedicated robotaxis, meaning they will be able to achieve absolutely massive scale, seemingly overnight relative to a company like Waymo, who 1, can't build roughly 2 million vehicles per year, 2, don't have 7+ million vehicles on roads today that with a software update can begin operating autonomously, should their owners choose to enable that. And 3, even if they were somehow able to send a software update to millions of vehicles on roads, in order for them to continue competing with Tesla, they can't start cranking out a comparable number of vehicles to flood markets one after the other, because Waymo doesn't even make vehicles. They have to pay another company. Anyway, I jumped the gun again. I just, sometimes it's kind of predictable to see where these arguments are going. Please, give us something, Jeremy. Just at least one point I can completely agree with. Because please don't do this. Waymo's ahead. They've been operating for this many years. They're doing this many rides, blah, blah. Tesla's behind, and then not mention the generalized solution and how quickly it can roll out. Please don't do that. I'm begging you, man.
So cocky, right? And he's going to now have to go head to head with Google, with infinite amounts of money coming out of their head. They don't even know what to do with all the money, right? He's going to have to go head to head with Google, and Google doesn't lose. Ask Apple. Steve Jobs, he put Apple in a great position with the iOS store, right? And Apple's product. At the end of the day, Apple still ended up losing the war against Google. Google ended up with, by far and away, the bigger market share with Android than Apple. So Apple still has a very successful business, but a very small market share, across the world, right? He's got to go head to head with Google. This isn't like some market that there's no serious competition. No, there's serious competition. And Waymo's in the market today with vehicles today that will drive you around with no driver inside. Something that Tesla hopes to eventually do at some point this year. Waymo's been doing this, and they're expanding rapidly. Additionally, he's going to have to go head to head with Amazon as well. There's these Zoox products that are in the market. These drive all over the Las Vegas Strip. If you ever go on the Las Vegas Strip, you'll see plenty of these. It's the city I live in, right?
So a couple of things. It's true that Google has basically infinitely deep pockets, which means they can continue to fund a loss-making service like Waymo indefinitely, which means Waymo might stick around for a lot longer than you expect. Let's just say, hypothetically, Amazon owns Zoox. Do we have any other examples of anything to do with Amazon or its leader, previous leader, Jeff Bezos, competing with the Musk-led technology? Oh, wait, yeah, we do, actually. SpaceX versus Blue Origin. Blue Origin's actually older than SpaceX. And how's that working out so far? Oh, it's a totally irrelevant point anyway. I don't even know why I mentioned that.
He's going to have to go head-to-head with Amazon. Amazon's got money coming out of everywhere, okay? He's going to have to go head-to-head with Amazon. Like, this is serious competition. This isn't like when he was, trying to create PayPal back in the day and there was no competition. SpaceX had no competition. Tesla had no competition. No. Now you're going direct against Google and Amazon. Oh, and there's that one company. I forget about them. Uber. You think Dara and Uber is just going to go laying down and say, oh, you guys can take us all over. We got 70+% of the market share, but no, here, you guys just take it all. No. Of course, Uber is going to fight with every muscle in their body.
Now, it's true, Uber's not going to want to go out of business. What's really ironic is that Uber did exactly this to the taxi business. First time I ever took an Uber was 2014. I was in San Francisco. Long story, I won't get into it. And it was an amazing service. Uber arrived in like 3 or 4 minutes. I'm like, holy fuck. And it was way cheaper than a taxi. Incredible stuff. And everyone in San Francisco in 2014 was raving about this new service, Uber, right? It was great. But Uber's going to go from disruptor to disruptee. And here's the reason. Uber has drivers. The most expensive thing in terms of the cost per mile is the driver. If Tesla has vehicles that can do roughly the same service and they don't have to pay a driver, how does Uber compete? Well, they have to compete on cost. Otherwise, consumers are going to choose the autonomous Tesla. But if they compete on cost and they've got pretty small margins today, they're fucked. It's not sustainable. Now, Uber's not going to want this disruption to take place. They're going to do everything they can. They're going to fight tooth and nail to survive, much like I'm sure Blockbuster was fighting years ago when getting disrupted by Netflix. Please somebody explain to me how Uber today is going to be able to compete with Tesla sustainably over time. If Tesla can operate autonomous vehicles, the biggest cost of which is the driver, doesn't exist, meaning Tesla can price far more competitively than Uber and still make a profit, and if Uber wants to compete on price, they'll have to lose money per mile. How does Uber compete sustainably over the long term? I'd love to know.
To make it sure they survive, right? And do whatever they have to do so they don't end up with a market share of 5%, in 10 years from now, right? This is serious competition they're going to have to go with, right? The days of Elon Musk sleeping on the factory floor are long gone, right? Now, this is a much bigger point I'm about to make here that you got to really understand on a high level, right? When you have a leader of an organization that is a part-time worker, your workforce, you're going to get part-time results from your workforce. In order to have a great whatever behind you, whether it's a team or whatever, they got to feel like the leader works his butt off and is out there every day focused on this thing they're going after, right? I don't think there's anybody that works at Tesla, and I know, a good amount of people that work at Tesla. I don't think there's anybody that works at Tesla that really feels like Elon Musk is at all focused on Tesla, which leads a workforce to not really rally behind their leader. What is your motivation to do amazing things or work super hard when your leader it's just a side project for him, right? There's not a lot of motivation for you. It's very different than Tesla 5 or 10 years ago, when everybody was going after this big goal, when the company had his back against the wall and had this small valuation. You had a leader that was like, I'm going to sleep on the factory floor if I got to. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to work 7 days a week here if I got to. Those days are long gone. And that creates a workforce that's not very incentivized.
I'll give Jeremy half a point for this. I understand what he's saying. Certainly true that, leaders lead by example. That being said, I think there's a lot of people who work at Tesla who watch this content. So please let me know in the comments below if you happen to be a Tesla employee, your thoughts on this. Is Jeremy right? You're working a lot less hard now because you don't see Elon sleeping on the factory floor because he doesn't need to right now. And are you not at all inspired by the solving of autonomy, the rollout of the Robotaxis, the humanoid robot, ushering in an era of abundance? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear. He gets half a point. But the flip side, again, Musk has always been leading SpaceX and a bunch of other companies at the same time. So you can't really call him the part-time CEO unless you acknowledge that he's always been a part-time CEO. And he focuses his attentions where he needs to.
You want to go to war with them? Of course not. Imagine Phil Jackson, great, NBA coach, maybe the best ever, right? Imagine if he was just like, part-time coming in, you think Michael Jordan would have won all those championships and Kobe Bryant would have won all those championships if Phil Jackson was just a part-time coach? No. Think if Bill Belichick was just a part-time NFL coach and was just part-time in it, you think the Patriots and Tom Brady would have won all those Super Bowls? Come on, man. You got to wake up at some point in time. You got to understand how business works. You got to understand how a workforce is motivated or not motivated.
Jeremy is making some valid points about workforce motivation, although doesn't seem to be touching much on the truly inspiring missions, especially around Robotaxi, which is directly in line with Tesla's mission and humanoid robots. But I just want to take a moment here to put things in perspective. Jeremy, who himself is a great businessman, relative to most people watching, myself included, I'm just out here providing maybe some feedback to Elon Musk about how to run a business successfully and how to motivate a team successfully. I rest my case. And again, no disrespect to Jeremy, right? He's done really well, but maybe some perspective.
And if you feel like your CEO's part-time in it, why are you going to give great effort? If you're an executive, why do you even want to work for Tesla? Your fearless leader is a part-time CEO, a part-timer, right? That's probably looking for yes men around him and a yes men board of directors. And then you get yes men results, right? That's what happens. And that's important you understand this. And you got to ask yourself, like, why did this happen? Well, if you're Elon Musk, your net worth is $355 billion, right? People will buy and hold your stock regardless of how trash your numbers are. You could post bad numbers after bad numbers after bad numbers after bad numbers after bad numbers. You could just say, we promise in this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, even though, we know these things don't work out. If people are willing to just continue to buy your stock and hold your stock, no matter what you do, where's your motivation? It's like welfare for the rich, I would call it, okay? So there's if you're on welfare or some sort of government assistance, people always say, like, where's your incentive to work? Because the government's just giving you money, right? The government's just giving you money. Why are you going to work? This is the same exact thing for somebody like an Elon Musk. It's just we're doing a welfare for the rich. Where it's like, where's his incentive? Like Tesla has like an $800 billion valuation, even though their numbers are garbage, the core business is rotten, the growth businesses are about to tank, right? They're behind competition now in several different key areas, and they're about to try to go to battle with a part-time CEO against some of the biggest companies in the world. Good luck. And so that's...
All right, I'm taking a moment here to try and process the reasoning here. So apparently Elon Musk has an astronomical net worth, therefore he has no incentive to continue working. He does have an astronomical net worth. And apparently Tesla fanboys like myself will buy the stock no matter what and hold no matter what. Therefore, what incentive does he have to work? Okay, if we reason along these lines, I guess we've got to reverse engineer what was the magic number at which point Elon Musk's net worth reached a threshold where he was no longer incentivized to work. The dude lives like a pauper. I mean, his biggest expense is probably at this point in time paying some baby mamas. Guy's actual living costs are almost nothing, especially relative to his net worth. So what was the number where suddenly Elon Musk was no longer incentivized to work? And then if that's the case, why has he continued to pursue opportunities to try and make a positive difference, to get involved, first acquire Twitter, save free speech and democracy, help with the Department of Government efficiency at great personal risk to his safety? I mean, we've got to reason a little bit deeper than this first layer and say, if this is true, what was the magic number? And then if it is true, then why is he still continuing to work hard? Obviously, only part-time on Tesla, but hard on other projects. Now, the actual answer to this extremely obvious question is Elon Musk is an extremely ambition-driven purpose. I mean, I don't want to speak for Musk, but in this case, I think I can. His goal is to be as useful as possible. Period. That's what keeps him going. Be useful. It just so happens, if you have a relatively large brain, you're a great leader, trigger alert, you're great at recruiting, you're great at solving complicated problems over time. By pursuing your mission of being as useful as possible, a unintended consequence of being as useful as possible will be adding a huge amount of value, which will result in you accruing an astronomical net worth. Elon is trying to be as useful as possible. Autonomy is going to save 1 million lives per year, roughly. Never mind Tesla's impact on transitioning the world to sustainable energy. Humanoid robots going to usher in an era of abundance for everyone, where the marginal cost of everything, goods, services, products, falls to near zero. He's pursuing Starship to colonize Mars, to help humanity become a multi-planet and then eventually multi-stellar species. He's trying to help steward AI in the right direction with XAI. Allow people to freely share their thoughts, opinions, and ideas. That's why he acquired Twitter, now X. He's trying to help people with brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, etc. speak again, talk again, move again, improve their quality of life via Neuralink, Boring Company, to reduce traffic congestion. The common thread here is the guy's trying to be maximally useful. He doesn't need the money. It's a side effect of him trying to be useful and, spoiler alert, actually successfully being extremely useful at scale. This is why he does everything he does. That's his North Star. It's so obvious. The guy is built different. he's not going to stop working as hard as he possibly can and focusing everywhere he thinks, A, I can make a massive difference, and or B, I can, but no one else is really going to have an impact there. Do you think Elon wakes up and goes, oh, well, I can't wait to massively increase the risk to my personal safety, get attacked relentlessly and pursue this project that lots of other people could take care of as well? No, he wakes up and goes, oh, for fuck's sake, are you telling me I'm literally the only person that either has the means and or the will to do this thing that's really important that needs to get done, and I'm the only one that can do it? God damn it, I have to do it again. Fuck. That's what happens. So let this be a message to Tesla investors, okay? There will be another time in the future where there's a massive, enormous opportunity for Elon Musk to be useful outside of Tesla. And if he looks around and sees that no one else is either going to be able to have a comparable impact, or plenty of people could, but they just simply won't do it, you know what? He's going to raise his hand because he can't not. He's trying to be as useful as possible. And you've got to respect that. Given Elon Musk's current lifestyle, guy lives like a total brokey relative to his net worth. If we follow Jeremy's line of reasoning, we'd have to say that surely Elon Musk reached the threshold of not having a financial incentive to keep working probably about $355 billion ago, right? $700 million is enough to get by, right? I'm sure as a businessman, Jeremy will understand that if you have high-performing employees, you don't pay them based on their time but their results. You don't care how much they're working, you care on how much they're producing. And based on Elon Musk's results, whether we look at Neuralink, Tesla, SpaceX, XAI, the Twitter acquisition, the guy knows how to get phenomenal results while juggling half a dozen or more other extremely challenging projects simultaneously. In fact, I think that actually drives him to get more done in less time. He's a productivity machine.
That's why this has happened. That's why Elon Musk, at the end of the day, like, where's his incentive? If Tesla stock was a $50 billion market cap, I can tell you, Elon Musk's incentive would be very, very different. But when people will buy your stock and hold your stock, no matter what, you could just say, oh, we're going to be creating a billion trillion robots, and, oh, we're going to win this. If people just believe it, like they're just going to continue to hold, and like at the end of the day, it's just welfare for the rich, right?
It sounds a little bit like Bernie or AOC at the moment. I don't know what's going on here. Jeremy's extremely wrong on this point. Elon Musk's incentive is not financial. He's trying to be useful. That is clear as day. Thankfully, there is some good news. Jeremy appears now to be about to answer the question, what it would take for me to buy Tesla back in future years.
Next up, what would it take for me to buy Tesla back in future years? I don't know, man. I don't want to say I would never own Tesla again, but I just have trouble seeing like how they're going to... Because let's be very clear, Tesla's a turnaround company now. And that sounds insane to say, but it's the truth. The core business is broken. The growth businesses are about to go to very small growth rates, maybe even negative. It's a turnaround company. And so with turnaround companies, you got to get them for dirt cheap valuations. Does Tesla have a dirt cheap valuation? Absolutely not. The forward Ps, the price to sales ratios, all that stuff is insanely high. So the valuation would need to come down so dramatically from here. I'm talking like a 70, 80% crash to make me say, you know what, this is worth me throwing some money in. Or I would need to see Elon go full time back at Tesla again and put in like crazy work, crazy effort, and get the whole workforce re-energized. It needs to be dramatic though. It's not like there's a small like Tesla stock falls to 190, I'll buy. No, I wouldn't buy Tesla today at 120.
Bro, if Tesla was 120, I'd start another secret OnlyFans selling feet pics to you sick fucks to raise enough capital to buy the fucking dip. Brother. Now look, I think Jeremy's trying his best here to reason through this, but I got to be honest, the guy has not provided a single actual valid reason as to why he's negative on Tesla. There's a lot of misunderstanding or one-level thinking. He's seeing a disaster that is not there. I mean, the number of examples here where, for example, Q1 sales collapsing in Europe, no mention of the Model Y changeover, which directly results in less production. Suggestion that Elon's a part-time CEO, but I mean, what was he doing running SpaceX and Tesla when he was first buying Tesla? It didn't seem to be a problem then. The absurd assertions regarding China, failing to mention that the best-selling vehicle in China for 2 years in a row was Tesla's Model Y, and at a price 2 to 3 times higher than the local Chinese competition. There was no mention of Tesla's more affordable vehicles, the first of which enters production this half of this year, and I'm recording this basically the end of April. Seems weird. Just a lot of probably really important factors that weren't even discussed, which begs the question, did Jeremy not know these things? Or did he just not think it was relevant to bring those up? I mean, I've talked about a lot of counterpoints to my own points, right? Like I've acknowledged the Chinese EVs, they're fantastic products, great price, but most of the companies producing them not doing so particularly profitably, and even so, Tesla's still outselling them in their home country. I acknowledge that some of the far left-hards are shrieking about Elon bad, blah, 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 but I also talk about the people on the political right who are actually literally buying Teslas now specifically to support Elon Musk, even if they think climate change is a hoax, and maybe they're right. Jeremy didn't acknowledge the fact that Elon Musk has always been leading SpaceX while also leading Tesla as a public company, never mind the other side projects. So that's not new. It's just a kind of puzzling video. I mean, I actually don't really know if Jeremy can see any reasons to buy Tesla. Now, that being said, right, you can't go broke making a profit. I'm not a hater here. Jeremy's like, forget his investments. The guy's an absolute business unit, a machine. I don't think Jeremy's publicly disclosed how much he does on his little private stocks group, but bruh, this guy's killing it. So you can't be a hater for the guy locking in a profit on Tesla. Everyone free to make their own decisions. However, not one reason I've heard in this video stood up to any scrutiny whatsoever. And of course, the haters will say, well, I'm just a deluded Tesla fanboy. But I challenge you, please, respond to any of the counterpoints I've made to Jeremy's arguments. Explain why I'm wrong. I won't hold my breath. And I openly admitted, right, the biggest possible negative point Jeremy could have made, which is a good one, would have been the tariffs on the battery cells going into the storage products. Massive temporary headwind, at least while those tariffs are in place to negotiate. Massive headwind on Tesla's fastest growing profit center for now. But it almost seems like Jeremy's made up his mind to just not own Tesla stock and then gone looking for reasons. And once he goes one layer deep, it's like, okay, yep, that's a good one. All right, Q1 sales down, tick, collapsing, tick. I mean, what's going on?
The stock could fall 50% from here, and I have 0% interest in buying Tesla. Things are that bad, factually, with the company. So, I'll never say never, but man, so much needs to happen for me to, even buy this one. So, goodbye, Tesla, my esla. It was fun. Made crazy money on that stock over the years, but, yeah, it's sad it had to end this way, but at the end of the day, it's, there's always going to be, someday I'll sell Meta stock, right? Out of it completely. Like every stock I buy, there will be a day that eventually I'll sell out of that stock completely, right? And, Tesla stock I held many, many years and through a lot of dramatic times, but it's clear, things are it's not worth it. So, alrighty guys, appreciate you joining me. Much love as always, and have a great day.
Holy shit, dude. Look, now, as I said, I'm not a hater here. Good on Jeremy. He made plenty of money on Tesla. Wherever he's redeployed those profits after he pays his capital gains taxes, I hope he does very well. He might massively outperform Tesla too. I mean, there's going to be plenty of other opportunities out there. My point wasn't to criticize or even react to Jeremy's decision to sell Tesla, but to understand and respond to some of the reasoning. As I mentioned, none of which actually stands up to any scrutiny. But of course, the counter response from the haters is, well, I'm just a deluded Tesla fanboy. But like I said, I challenge anybody to provide a counterpoint to any of my arguments. I'm happy to hear them. As deluded and delusional as I sound, I'm actually a super rational dude. And one final note, folks, don't go trolling Jeremy. Don't be a hater. The guy's made a lot of money. He's making more money per fucking second than you do from his businesses. So don't go trolling him if he might miss out on some potential gains on Tesla just before they launch Robotaxis. Now, I do have a prediction. I suspect in the future, Jeremy will actually buy back into Tesla stock. At what point this occurs, I do not know. But I'm going to put on the record, I guess this junkie, he's recently divorced, is going to clean up her act, so to speak. And Daddy Jeremy just won't be able to resist one more time. Just one final point too. You have to give credit to Jeremy for putting this out there, knowing full well that there is a subset of deluded Tesla fanboys who are super emotional and go and attack the guy just because he's sold out of his Tesla stock. Don't be one of the haters, man. The guy's a good person. He's doing well, providing for his family, creating content. He made a profit on Tesla. Good for him. That said, it's not going to stop me roasting his reasoning and pointing out all the holes in the supposed logic. Not one valid point in terms of the selling of Tesla stock. None of them made sense to me. That said, he can't go broke making a profit. And honestly, I don't think he ever needs his profits on the Tesla shares to be doing okay. And I think it's only a matter of time before he owns Tesla again. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 is awesome. I've been taking it daily now for more than 3 years. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus has prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to improve gut health, regularity, and help your body handle stress. I'm always looking for an edge to help me feel and perform my best, which is why I haven't missed a day of AG1 for more than 3 years. Just try it and see how you feel. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs.